Hey, hi everyone.
Hello,
Hello,
we are
everybody.
live. So we're having kind of a discussion back here, and one of the things is that as you the paying patrons know, we found after 3 years of searching a potential, and I'm getting it's going to be the actual one, the silver jeweler supplier crafted, artisan creating the Septiquitra pendant for us. And so we're really excited about that. So what we did was and I'll go ahead and just present here, like just for people's information, uh, potential jewelry supplier, and we'll go ahead and share the images. Like, so here's the chains. Okay, so it's the top chain, I believe, or the second one, like that we're going to be having the chains available as well if people wish to purchase a separate chain. But let me get the schematic. Oh, I sent the gold and silver one. I'm going to try to get one that is done with, let me see here. Hang on. Where is the, please see attached. Here it is. Okay, here's our attachment, you guys. Sorry about that. So we are getting this particular piece made in 1 inch across, or 2.5 centimeters. And it's going to look like this, but rather in this brass color, it's going to be sterling silver. Okay, and it will also have a piece at the top called a loop where you could put a chain or a cording through. And for our paid patrons, our current paid patrons, you get one of these if you've been a member for 3 months. Okay, so just saying, like, if you join now, by December, you will have one of these pendants, as well as our sticker and other things that we have in the back end of Patreon. And we're going to be adding more to that later, so you guys can get, like, possibly later coffee cups and things like that. That'll come later, but we're really excited about finding an actual sterling silver creator that created this CAD file. Okay, so this schematic. And so we are really happy to bring that to you. And yours truly, Lisa, will be crocheting cotton cording, so that if you don't have a chain to put this on, because I realize they're a little bit pricey, but we can make a cord for you, and we'll just throw that in, okay, into, like, it'll be like included if you want. So patrons get one of these as a gift for your excellent patronage. Okay, if you wish to buy one separately, they're going to be 25 for the the regular, like, larger market. And if you were ever a patron of ours before, and we see that you've donated Patreon money, or maybe PayPal or something like that, you can have a price of $20, because we don't want it to be like, we want to give, like, inspiring, like, either join us or like, whatever it is. We are going to be placing the order this week, and we expect the shipment to come probably before mid-October. So if you wanted to order any extra pendants for people that are patrons, okay, current patrons, I should say, or if you wanted to order, other ones, make sure you get a hold of us. And we also have the chains. So get a hold of us, okay, and we'll get a total for you. And around approximately mid-October is when we'll need the money in order to, do the shipping and, all of the things. Because we're actually going to place the order and have it shipped to us, and then we're going to split it up here. And as far as shipping to Europe, we're looking at possibly shipping one package over and then having that opened up. and then shipped from like the Netherlands or something, so that like each person will get their thing, and it'll be easier to ship from one place in the Netherlands rather than, you know, all of these little packages from the USA type thing. So right now, I think we have possibly one going to France, one to Portugal, potentially one to Eastern Europe. We're not sure yet, like all the rest of them, but like that would all be handled in that way. So basically everybody would have their Septiquitra by November. And then later we're hoping to add merch in our Redbubble store, and is again in our back end of Patreon. So as you pay money, and you know, like the longer that you're a patron, you can get actual merch. Okay. You can get coffee cups and hopefully t-shirts at some point. We're working on it. Okay. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share with all of you guys. And let me see if we have a Septiquitra to share. So let me, oh, okay. Oh, good grief. It didn't share it, did it?
Not that I can see.
Okay, I'm going to stop the screen. I apologize. I wanted to share the actual photo of, I'm going to do it again. Hi, Starflower. Oh my gosh, she's here. Our newest patron, you guys.
Oh,
Let's
cool.
ask her how she found us. Okay. So let me go ahead and find the presentation of the file. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Oh, I see what's going on here. They didn't have, okay, so maybe I'll have to do the entire screen. So I'm going to do it in this way, you guys, because for whatever reason, I can't present it. Screen sharing was canceled. Okay. Okay. Something is screwy with StreamYard today. I apologize. Like, normally this is not a big deal. Like, we can normally share a picture. Chrome tab.
If you could tell them the email title, I suppose I could extract the actual picture.
Oh no.
Okay.
No, the picture is already okay. I tried it by sharing it in the, as an attachment in the email, like in the Chrome tab, but that's not working. So what I'm just going to do is just go to the entire screen, and then, sorry guys, you'll have to like deal with my screen for a moment. Yeah. Okay. And why isn't it sharing my screen? Okay, oh, I had to highlight it first, sorry. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen, and I know it's kind of dizzying. Hang on a second, because what I'm gonna do is
Dios mío.
I'm gonna pull up all the Septiquitras. Okay, so we were playing around with the design here, and this is what we ended up sending to the jeweler in order to, you know, kind of see what's going on. But we were also playing with color combinations, thinking about like the color of t-shirts, and, you know, some of them having, you know, the darker outlining, like lighter colors, and then, you know, lighter colors for the darker outlines, you know, like black and stuff like that. So, you know, having options potentially for the type of look that we would want. Okay, so there's that, but also let me find the other file, jewelry examples. Okay, and here is the tab for that. Okay, can you guys see a big picture of the Septiquitra schematic that was sent to us? Okay, because what it does is it switches away from the screen, so, and I don't have a different monitor, so I can't see what's going on.
It's showing up fine. Yeah.
Excellent. So this is what we were talking about, you guys. And so I'm going to stop sharing so that I stop giving you a headache. Okay. So Starflower is indulged myself in Tolkien. Here, we're going to highlight this comment. Okay. So Starflower, our newest patron, hello, says, she indulged herself in Tolkien last year and discovered the TE YouTube videos, which, because we're now called WAL. But yeah, like we're Tia Eldaleva for, some 20 years almost, so we're coming up on our, we're coming up on our 20th birthday in August of next year. So we're 19 years old right now. So that's pretty cool. And Nimue says, glad you've joined us. Welcome, Starflower. Awesome. Very good. And let's see who else. Oh, okay. And Marianne is here. We just wanted to highlight and say howdy. Okay. And okay, I think that we're good to go. Let's double check on the comments. Brilliant. She says, thank you. Awesome. So, okay, let's upload the actual presentation. And that is in a different window. So, present, share screen. So, guys, this will be easier because I've already done it. Except that now StreamYard has taken that down. Okay, let me open up the file again. Okay.
This is the PDF that I'll be reading from.
Yes, and we did this before, but now we're doing it again so that it's not as disturbing as it was last time. Okay, let's see here. Window.
We had some people thinking we were a linguistics group, so, we aren't.
We are not.
Okay, I'm going to have to close this window down and do it again and reopen it so that it shows up in the back end of StreamYard. For some reason, this PDF reader, okay, close all tabs, fine. When I open this reader and then I share something else, I have to close it and reopen it again in order for it to show up in the window, the back end window for StreamYard. So I'm going to open it again and I'll delete the photo. Okay, and then we have the file folder here. Okay, we're opening it up again. Okay, now we'll see if it's working properly. And I'll present, share screen, window. Okay, Chrome tab. No, it's not a Chrome tab. It's a window and it should be opening. You know what? I may just have to go for the entire screen again. I'm so sorry, you guys. I don't know what else is going on here, like as far as why it's not working. So I guess I'll do it that way. So I'm going to switch over to the document, and Dave, please let me know if it works.
It's working now. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay. And you can see me scrolling up and down, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to leave it here. I will come back and look at the comments later. I won't be able to look at the comments in live time when I'm doing the document. I'm letting you guys know. I'm doing a workaround so that we can just make this work.
Okay. What I'm going to do is because this is a foundational video for our group, and there may be people who don't know about me or who I am or why I call myself a shaman and all that sort of thing. I'll go through it very, very briefly, and then I have some links to post. I opened up our YouTube video, and I could post them in the comments on the.
You can, but I believe that video is also in the description of the video. If it's not, I will update it and make sure that it's there. But I'm pretty sure that we included it.
Well, what I was going to do is basically these are the 3 Hack MD articles that I wrote recently. So they didn't exist at the last time that we made this.
Feel free to go ahead and put those in. I believe you can do it from StreamYard, but it might not link.
Right. So
So
what I'm
if
going
you
to do,
want to, you can put it into the messenger, and then I'll copy them from there.
Okay. All right.
Like
I didn't know.
in Facebook
Right.
Messenger.
Right.
I'll
I
copy
didn't.
them, but I'll link them. But it's gonna be wonky, guys. I'm just gonna tell you ahead of time.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm the only one that can post, because I'm the, if you will, host. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only time that links will work is if I post them. If anyone else posts
I
them,
remember
even
that from last
Dave,
time.
it won't
Right.
link. So we're gonna make it so that you guys can link it, and we're gonna make the live chat actually replayable. We were not able to do that with our last video, which was another reason we decided to redo this, because YouTube had a fit about a copyright issue. And we decided to cut out about 20 minutes of interruption from someone who completely just hijacked our conversation. So that is now gone, but at the same time, you know, we wanted to do this again. So for people who are patrons, and if they need to, for any reason, reference the old video, it'll still be uploaded in the back end. We're just going to change it to unlisted, and we're going to make this one the public video so that people know the Tolkien shamanism, you know, connection from this video. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Okay. So basically, I came into into my shamanic talent relatively late in life, and I'm a person on the autism spectrum. I've been diagnosed with two different diagnoses by two different doctors at two different times. One was PDD-NOS, and one was Asperger's syndrome. When those were still differentiated. In the latest basically diagnostic manual, they collapsed everything into autism spectrum. But I believe the former description of PDD-NOS was actually the most accurate one. Anyway, I'm going to post in some. These links I'm going to post in are more about me than about the Way of Arda's lore, but I'm only pasting them in so that people can get an idea of where I'm coming from. I'll probably reuse them when we later do a sort of a biographical video on me. But for right now, I'm going to post these in here. And Lisa, you said you wanted me.
The one that we already have is the definition of mytho-historical. So we have that one already posted.
Right, and you probably have the Way of Arda's lore one too. Way of Arda's lore.
Yes, we do.
Guardians. Okay, these are three that I basically just wrote. So I don't think you have.
I see. So these will need to be updated in the description.
Yeah,
I'm having to look at the description on the video as it's playing live on my phone, because I needed to be able to reference it, because if I switch out, because I am doing my entire screen, you'll see everything that I'm doing. So,
right. So
I'm doing it on my phone to save your eyes.
Right. Yeah. Do you want me to post it into Facebook Messenger?
That would be good, because then I can pull it out of the phone and then you know, like send it. Yeah. So that should work out.
There's the first one.
Okay, I may have to hand type it into, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do this.
Do you want me to post it into somewhere else? Like into...
Hang on a minute. I don't know how I'm going to do... What I'm trying to do is make it linkable in live chat. In order to do that, I've got to switch around my screen. Unfortunately, because I wasn't able to get this to appear in the screen, so therefore I'm using the entire screen setting.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't...
You're going to see everything that I'm doing. Okay, I just want to tell you. So
if you want to, we can just bypass it now, and you can link them afterwards. You know, if that's better. Would you rather do that?
Okay. Well, let me try the first one that you have.
Okay.
We'll see what this is. Okay. Copy. Okay. So I'm putting it in the comments. So you guys get to see how we do all of this stuff in the back end of StreamYard now.
And
so hopefully this works.
There's the second one I just posted.
Okay. Oh, that doesn't work. I have to switch back. Okay.
And I'll post the third one now. And that's it. That's all I have to do right now.
Oh God. Okay, hang on. Let me grab this one because my mouse didn't grab it the first time. It will now. Copy. Oh, he's back. Hello, Arondur. We see you. Okay, so we're highlighting that, you know, we're saying hi to people that as they show up. Okay. And the other one that we're going to be doing is this one, the Resurgence, correct?
Yeah, that's the last one.
Okay, I'm trying to get it to highlight. Okay, there we go. Trying to get it to grab, copy. Okay. We are doing good today.
And that's just
letting you know how we're doing. Yeah.
That's a little background on me so that people will say, well, who is this guy who has a tiger avatar?
Just in case the live stream doesn't work, I'm going to actually highlight each of these that I have posted.
Okay.
So this one is the Shamanic Vision Insights and the Illusion of Time. Okay, that's his Hack MD. We will be adding these to the description later. I just don't have time right now. It's too complicated, okay, especially with all that's going on right now. Okay. The Science and Its Limits paper is here. Okay. And finally, The Resurgence of the Occult and the Metaphysics of Quality, a scientific shaman's investigation. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I had these links, you know, in the actual video, so that if we have to hand type them into a URL bar, just in case they don't show up here, I will also try to put it in the comments and the video description afterward. But this is just in case we don't get it done right away, and if the live stream replay doesn't work. Okay, so we're just covering our bases is really what we're doing here. Okay. I'm going to be switching out, okay? I'm going to be switching out from the comments. I'm not going to be able to read the comments. I'm going to be at the document, okay? So I'm just letting you know I'm not ignoring you. I literally can't see you because of the function that we're doing and how I've had to make a workaround for this to make it work today. Okay, Arondur says, I have dreamed about many interesting emotional dreams and interpreted them with chat. That's awesome. Okay, so we are moving on to the document. Okay. So I'm going to be switching over. Dave, can you tell me if the document is working?
Let me check here. Yes, it is.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, and so I'll be scrolling, and then when we take breaks, I'll come back to the comments. Okay.
Right.
So go ahead and start, and then I'm going to try to make the illustration viewable all in one place on the video when the time comes for that.
Okay, this is the paper that I wrote probably about a month and a half or 2 months ago now. At least I started it then. So Tolkien's shamanic worldview, vision, augury, and the stewardship of nature in J.R.R. Tolkien's life and Legendarium. In this paper, I intend to demonstrate that J.R.R. Tolkien likely employed a form of shamanic consciousness to create much of the narrative material in his Legendarium. Additionally, I will explore instances of shamanic insight and knowledge reception in Tolkien's personal life. Finally, I will examine Tolkien's love for the natural world, focusing on how nature, including plants, animals, and landscapes, is depicted with individual identity and moral agency in his life and works. And now we go to
what exactly is shamanism. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom down, I guess.
Right.
In order for this to be more viewable. Hang on. I think maybe it was 125.
And that's actually reconstructed cave art.
Okay. I was going to say a slightly more. So I guess it's going to have to be zoom 100 in order for it to be viewed entirely on the screen. Right. Can you see it says, what exactly is shamanism? What I'm looking at is the entire, if you will, illustration. And then even the link underneath where it says reconstructed cave art of Tassili in Ajur with 4713 BCE, and then a link that is in the paper. And for those of you who wish to have a copy of this paper, you can become a free Patreon level and access this paper. So paid members of Patreon have other benefits, okay? But the free level of benefit, you can actually read this paper. So I just thought I would let you know that. If you need the Patreon link, we have it in our link tree in our, we have that link everywhere. So you can find it. Link tree, Elven Spiritual Path. And we haven't changed the name to Way of Arda's Lore yet, but we will later. Okay. But right now that's working for us. So I'm going to scroll down to the reading part now and then re-enlarge it. Okay, is that good, Dave, or should I make it really big?
Let me take a look here. That's fine. That's fine, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I'll just keep it like this.
Okay, what exactly is shamanism? This question is worth examining, as the modern overculture often believes that shamanism is something only indigenous cultures can practice, usually learned from a culture shaman or medicine person. However, considering that the human genus Homo emerged 2.8 to 2.5 million years ago, and behavioral modernity appeared 50,000 to 70,000 years ago, there must have been a primal shaman who was not taught by any predecessor. This conclusion follows logically from human development over time. And then, if you want to, we can go to the endnote number 2 there, and that shows that explains what behavioral modernity actually is, because not everyone may be familiar with that term.
Okay. So behavioral modernity refers to a set of traits and behaviors that distinguish anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, from earlier hominins and contemporary non-human primates. These traits and behaviors typically include, number 1 is advanced tool use, which is the creation and use of complex tools, including composite tools made of multiple materials. Number 2 would be symbolic thinking, the use of symbols to represent objects, actions, or ideas. This includes the creation of art, such as cave paintings, carvings, and personal ornaments. Number 3 would be language and communication, the development of sophisticated spoken language and other forms of communication. Number 4 would be social organization, complex social structures including long-distance trade networks and social stratification. Number 5, cultural practices, rituals, burial practices, and other cultural expressions that indicate a belief in the supernatural or an afterlife. And number 6, cognitive flexibility, the ability to innovate, adapt to new environments, and solve problems in novel ways. And in the context of human evolution, behavioral, Dave, that's a typo, so fix it in the document, not today, but fix it later.
Where
modernity, behavioral is misspelled.
Okay.
But it's fine. Modernity marks a significant cognitive and cultural leap that occurred around 50,000 to 70,000 years ago, often associated with the Upper Paleolithic period in Europe and similar periods in other parts of the world. This period is characterized by a rapid acceleration in technological, artistic, and cultural development.
Now, if you click the 2 again, we'll go back to where we were.
Yeah, so here we are. So we're down to the however.
Yeah. However, to return to the original question, shamanism is a spiritual practice found in various cultures worldwide. It is characterized by the belief that certain individuals, known as shamans, can communicate with the intermediary spirit world, also termed the imaginal realm by philosopher and theologian Henry Corbin, and there's a link to who he is and a description of him. Shamans are often seen as healers, mediators, and spiritual guides within their communities. They are believed to have the power to enter altered states of consciousness. And endnote 3 there, it's very long, but I just want to show the people that I include basically the neurological aspects of shamanism, so you can see about EEG studies and functional MRI studies and all that under endnote 3. You can read it on your own time later, because it would be too
It'll be too long
to go through. Yeah.
Go through here.
Right.
Okay, that's okay. So it's just the 3 studies here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave.
And then in these states, shamans are said to journey to other realms to interact with spirits, ancestors, and other supernatural beings. These journeys are undertaken for various purposes, such as healing the sick, obtaining wisdom or guidance, ensuring successful hunts, or performing rituals for the community's well-being. The shaman's role is deeply integrated into the social and religious fabric of their culture, often holding a respected and sometimes feared position within their society.
Okay, can we pause here for a moment? I just want to see if there's any comments, because we just covered a lot of very deep material. So let me go see. Sorry, guys, it's visually going to be weird, but I need to see if there's any comments. Okay, I'll just show Pleiadian dream interpretation. Okay, so he's off topic again. No, we have not heard anything from Kimberly. So okay, so but is there any questions about the material that we're covering so far? If there is, put them in the live chat. We'll get to your question. I'll even highlight it for the video so that we'll answer it. And at that point, we'll, I don't know. It's like, I guess that this is the way that we're going to do it today. So I just felt that, and Dakyndre, did you have anything to add at this point to the conversation?
Not currently, no.
Okay, Aaron Juice says, I think dreams are very important in shamanism. And actually, I think that we're going to actually be covering that in this paper. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, we're
going to be covering dreams. Yeah, we'll touch on that. So thank you for your comment. We think so too. Okay. Okay, great. So let's go back to the paper. Excellent.
Tell me when I should start reading again.
Yeah, you can start reading again.
Okay. If the first shamans were untaught, how did they acquire these abilities? By entering an altered mental state, whether induced by entheogens, medicine plants like peyote, salvia divinorum, or ayahuasca, intense meditation as practiced by some Buddhist monks, or a strenuous physical and mental ordeal, such as the vision quest practiced by various First Nations here in North America. The specific matter of inducing the state doesn't matter. The goal is the altered mental state itself, through which new information flows. This information is often used for practical purposes. For example, among the Inuit, which used to be called Eskimos, but this is the people we're talking about, that's their true name. Caribou Inuit shamans are able to examine a road in advance of a journey in either of 2 manners. Sometimes they fall asleep and see the visions in a dream, or a spirit comes down invisibly from the air, hovers over them, and speaks from the air and tells them what the road is like. And then I go on, equally and probably more profoundly, as it tends to extend the mythos of a culture, shamanic information can also be used in stories, which in their turn contribute to the creation of a culture's myths. One example of this comes from the Kung San people, the Bushmen, who live on the western edge of the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. In her book, The Kung of Nai, author Lorna Marshall describes how a shaman's vision of a giant animal became a central mythological figure in their stories. In the Kung San tradition, a shaman's vision of a giant animal, seen during a trance dance, was later woven into their mythology as a powerful spirit being. This vision became a part of the oral history that explained natural phenomena and influenced their spiritual practices. Another example comes from the Amazon basin. During a shamanic ritual, Yanomami shamans ingest a hallucinogenic snuff called ebene, which induces visions. One notable vision described by a shaman involved a colossal anaconda spirit that he encountered. This vision later became a foundational myth, explaining the origin of the rivers and the relationship between the Yanomami and the spirits of the forest. The anaconda spirit was integrated into their oral traditions and ceremonies, symbolizing the life-giving and destructive powers of the Amazon's rivers. Finally, to illustrate the truly global nature of this way-being, we have an example from Japan. In ancient Shinto practices, shamans known as miko would enter trances during kagura performances. That's a type of dance. One miko's vision of a sun goddess dancing in the heavens was recorded and subsequently transformed into the myth of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and her emergence from the cave. This vision myth became a central narrative in Shinto, symbolizing the cyclical nature of darkness and light, and was celebrated in the various festivals and rituals. Now I'm going to proceed to what is the connection to Tolkien. Did anybody have any other comments or anything?
Okay, it's a good place to pause. So we covered basically shamanism and its origins, and how even the first shamans, that was where they were getting their spirit from. It wasn't like guided by humans, because the first ones didn't have those guides, so
Right,
it had
exactly.
to be done from the spirit world coming and joining in. And there are various ways that happens, mostly in trance, as we noticed here. Sometimes that trance has to be induced chemically through plant substances or something like that. So,
right.
And in the old world, I can tell you that there was like the plants that would give you shamanic capability in order to transcend those barriers or those veils. They were also very poisonous if used incorrectly. Okay, so like the amount that you would need in order to journey and the amount that you die was very small in between that. So it was extremely dangerous to do this. In North America and South America, they have plants that have a little bit more bandwidth about the ability to, transcend this plane of existence. And I mean the conscious plane, the third dimensional plane, the, whatever you want to call the, this plane, okay, as we're talking right now, and even using technology, which I think is kind of a fourth dimensional thing. But anyway, the transcending of that versus how much would kill you is much greater. So there's less room for error to do it that way. So
exactly. Yeah,
there were other substances used in the old worlds, though. Some were like less damaging, like amanita, like muscaria, things like that. And then there was other things like, mandrake, henbane. Basically, a lot of nightshades had a very, very poisonous quality. Okay. And I know this from being an herbalist, and how there are people who have predominantly old world, if you will, DNA, their ethnicities, and they are highly allergic to nightshades. And so they'll have conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or things like that. And part of that, there's a theory that part of that is happening because that person's body is having all of those ancient messages that nightshades are poisonous, right? Where in the New World, that was not the case. So potatoes, tomatoes, all of those types of things, they are New World plants. They were brought to Europe later when
exactly.
Christopher Columbus and prior excavations across the ocean, that we never were really taught about, had happened as well. So there was already culture exchange. So that's all I wanted to add at this point. Dakyndre, did you have anything to add?
The one thing I was going to add was Dave talked about how the first shamans, weren't trained by humans. They were, it was through the dream realm or through the connecting to those states. That kind of tracks to the same as in a lot of the occult worlds, that most of the best material that you will find is not in the books. It's not the training. It comes from around you as well. So yeah, it is interesting that the books and all of that are guides, just like in the shamanism. It's once you start a tradition, that's only how that person or that group has done it, not the only way it can be done.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that we should probably make that disclaimer, because even though there is kind of an overarching body of commonality between cultures, and therefore now like retermed core shamanism as per Michael Harner and The Way of the Shaman and some of the more modern works, that we're getting all of the commonality put together. I think that Dakyndre makes a really good point that like you can't just, it's not just like one size fits all. And, even though there's a lot of commonality in the way it works, you shouldn't just mix and match and do whatever the heck you want. Okay. Like,
well, exactly. Yeah.
Because it could be disrespectful, because the spirits that you're working with from one culture are not the same spirits that you are working with another culture. So you can't just mix things together willy-nilly and expect to have a good result. It's too disconcerting.
I don't know
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever, read Michael Harner's works, but what happened was anthropology as a social science did recognize commonalities in shamanic practices all over the world, and that's fine to recognize commonalities. What he did, he went a step further and basically posited that there's some sort of, as he calls it, core shamanism, and all you have to do is listen to my $3,000 retreats and buy my books, and then you too can be a shaman.
Right,
or
it's not that simple. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, let me just say that I do think that it was really necessary, like, okay, so, we can go back to psychology with this, with Carl Jung, and having, really expanded the field of psychology the way we know it today. Exactly. And then someone like Joseph Campbell came along and really, synthesized Jung's work for a non-psychology audience. In other words, like more of a layperson, to make myth and commonality of all the world myths as being a hero's journey very accessible to people. So in his own way, Michael Harner did do a good thing by allowing people to reclaim their shamanic territory by at least starting with a core shaman piece, because many pieces of shamanic culture had already been destroyed, okay, or hidden, or not accessible. So it's a good way to start working with things. However, I do think that once you get into a particular culture, maybe one that is your ethnicity, or that you have a connection that way, you don't have to what's the word I'm looking for? In other words, like once you choose like your method of like how to interact with spirit, and you find a really comfortable way, that is your way. In other words, like at that point, it's not core shamanism anymore. It's not like, oh, anybody can just come in this way, because you're making a relationship with these spirits, and in each culture, they are different spirits. Like there is this idea that, oh, well, Freya is the same as Isis, is the same as, Kuan Yin is the same as, whatever. No. I'm going to say, no, that is not how it works. each of those spirits are very much a different spirit to me. Like maybe that's a, you know, a polytheistic way of looking at it. But to me, that's an interaction that you need a lot of reverence for each of those particular spirits. Now, I realize that there are things in common, but that would be like saying that, you know, I have something in common with my friend over here, and maybe we look alike or whatever, and we're both, you know, like certain things, but that would be like saying that we're identical, like we're the same person. It's like, no, that's not how this works.
I would actually,
right. Go on.
I would actually just real quick, if I could interject one other thing.
Absolutely.
Commonality in information, in tradition, in anything is, this is just my opinion. Commonality is a good way to like validate and verify the authenticity of something, because if you have like the Mayans, for example, who have one set of lore, and you find that same set of lore in Siberia, where, you know, slightly different variation, but there's commonalities, that's a good way of verifying whether or how accurate that information is. If cultures across different eras, different geographical locations who didn't communicate with each other much, all have the same information, then you can look at that commonality and go, okay, there's a good chance this is valid.
Right.
Mm. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Awesome. I like that. Very good point, Dakyndre. Thank you. Okay, I guess that what we're going to do now is, now that we've discussed shamanism as a topic on its own, now we're going to delve into what the connection with Tolkien is. So, Dave, take it away.
Okay. What is the connection to Tolkien? When I describe aspects of Tolkien's mental state as shamanic, I'm referring to his ability to receive symbolic and visionary information in an altered cognitive state and quickly transcribe it into written form. My focus is primarily on the neurological altered state of the receiver rather than on the receiver's culture, a field technically called neurotheology, or the cognitive science of religion. And I have please see Appendix 2 for a list of references, and we don't have to do it now, but it lists a number of books that explains the concept and goes into more detail in case people want to read about it in further depth.
Yeah, we promise it's there at the end of the document.
And then I go on. Evidence for this ability is found throughout the biographical material that Christopher Tolkien frequently references in his examinations of his father's works. The clearest example is found in the Notion Club papers in Volume 9 of Home, which is History of Middle-earth, Sauron Defeated. This work describes lucid dreams, detailed historical visions, intense imagination, hallucinations of mysterious languages, encounters with ghosts, psychometry, the ability to know an object history by touching it, and many other altered states of consciousness and paranormal experiences. Christopher Tolkien's supporting notes connect several of these fictional descriptions to J.R.R. Tolkien's real-life incidents and experiences. And there's an endnote 8 there. Yeah, I basically go into a list of, you know, which is an instance of which thing.
Excellent.
So
thank you for that.
And then I go on. As biographer Humphrey Carpenter notes, no account of the external events of Tolkien's life can provide more than superficial explanations of the origins of his mythology. Certainly, the device that linked the stories in the first draft of the book, it was later abandoned, owes something to William Morris's The Earthly Paradise. For, as in that story, a sea voyager arrives at an unknown land where he is to hear a succession of tales. And this is what Humphrey Carpenter is talking about there, is what later became known as the Lost Tales, books 1 and 2.
I see.
Tolkien's voyager was called Ariel, a name that is explained as meaning one who dreams alone. But the tales that Ariel hears, grand, tragic, and heroic, cannot be explained as the mere product of literary influences and personal experience. When Tolkien began to write, he drew upon some deeper, richer seam of his imagination than he had yet explored, and it was a seam that would continue to yield for the rest of his life. More compellingly, in letter number 180, Tolkien directly addresses his creative process, stating, I think a lot of this kind of work goes on at other, to say lower, deeper, or higher introduces a false gradation, levels, when one is saying, how do you do, or even sleeping. I have long ceased to invent, though even patronizing or sneering critics on the side praise my invention, or wait till I seem to know what really happened, or until it writes itself. And the italics are in the original
There
letter.
you go. Yeah.
Another direct statement is, the stories were the thing. They arose in my mind as given things, and as they came separately, so too the links grew. That is to say, when he began to write, he would each time he would start a first draft, it would progress further, and they all became interlinked, much like hyperlinks on a website. Although of course such things didn't exist in his time, so he wouldn't have been able to say that. But and they rose in my mind as given things, and as they came separately, so too the links grew, and absorbing the continually interrupted labor, especially since, even apart from the necessities of life, my mind would wing to the other pole and spend itself on the linguistics. Yet always I had a sense of recording what was already there, somewhere, not of inventing. In fact, he uses the phrase, what really happened, 13 times in the source documents, indicating its significance to him. Typically when he uses this phrase, he's discussing his writing process, but in the Notion Club papers, he attributes it to a character named Frankly. This is significant in a wider sense because the story deals directly with precognitive dream reception and other shamanic phenomena. And if we go to endnote 12 there, it actually I list the where it occurs, how many times in each work. So
I see.
Basically three times in Letters, 4 in the Treason of Isengard, which is home 7, 3 in Sauron Defeated, home 9, 2 in the Children of Hurin, and 1 in Unfinished Tales. So add those up.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a lot. That's not an accident at that point. Right. Yeah.
And I'll go on. In fact, in a Notion Club paper storyline, a massive thunderstorm complex hits England from the Western Sea on June 12, 1987, bringing torrential rain, lightning, and strong winds that caused significant damage. Interestingly, the real Great Storm of 1987 occurred only 4 months later with very similar impacts.
Wow.
Though some may consider that coincidence, the Notion Club papers wasn't written in the 1980s, it was written in 1945. As a practicing shaman who has some experience in this mode, I would call this prescient at the very least.
Yeah. Tolkien
also had what he called his Atlantis complex, a recurring dream of a great wave flooding the land. And I linked to it, basically someone who had compiled all those. He later incorporated imagery from this dream into his History of Numenor and the stories of the Lost Road and the Notion Club papers. One may ask at this point if all the foregoing is intended as a proof. The answer to that is no, simply because in physical reality, no phenomenon can ever be proved. That's reserved for abstract mathematical theorems, and can only be shown to be highly correlated or not. And I think the number 13.
You want me to go to number 13?
Yeah, and the people may actually want to, like, you may want to put this link in a chat, because I said, for a deeper explanation of this statement, please see the article Science Doesn't Prove Anything, and that's a good thing. And the reason why that's important, because people all the time in daily life speak about science proves this or science disproves that. As a mathematician, I can see I understand why people say that, but it's an error in their thought. It doesn't prove anything. What it does is shows degrees of correlation. And I'll go back.
I apologize. I had to switch out of the document in order to make this link available.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it. And why my mouse isn't working to continue to highlight this and grab it.
And for those who haven't for those who don't really know what like correlation is in the mathematical sense, it basically means how probable a certain occurrence or
Oh,
event is to actually occur from a real a real underlying process versus a random event that would happen anyway. And that's the whole idea behind mathematical correlation. And that this article that Lisa's posting in explains that quite well.
excellent. I'm doing that right now in live chat. But it is also for some of you who are watching the replay and you download the document. It's also in the field of the document if you have the digital version on your machine. If you print it out, it'll just like have an underline on it. But if you take your mouse and click on the link, you'll be able to open this link as well. Here's what I will do, just in case our live replay doesn't work. I'm going to make sure that I highlight this comment. So it's thelogicofscience.com/2016/04/19/science doesn't prove anything, and that's a good thing. Okay, with hyphens in between every one of those without apostrophes. So just letting you guys know how to get to this article. And while I'm here, Dave, looks like we have some comments in the, so I'm going to hide that comment. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here. So, okay. All right, so Aaron Doerr is continuing his his statements about why he feels that dreams are important, which is great. Marianne, one of our wonderful patrons, thank you for coming today, says, thank you for reading the document. As being blind, I can't easily read the PDF files. So she's really happy that we're doing this again. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Oh, and continues and says in Turkey, they have a belief system in which Aluism is, and that is mixed with shamanism and Zoroastrianism. Yeah, like this is like common in all cultures, actually, where there were practices that were considered what we now call shamanic and built into the cultures. And then when the Abrahamic movements like were wiping everything out, as well as the age of reason and science, and I put that in quote marks because they were only looking at the third dimension and why the third dimension is important and none of the other dimensions, yeah, so that definitely happens. Okay, and Merlin, hi Merlin, we didn't realize you were here. Good point, Dakyndre, so he liked that. Starflower says, sounds like automatic writing. Yes, it does, doesn't it? And I know that automatic writing, so just so that you guys know what automatic writing is. So sometimes a person will know what it is, like in their mind or what have you, and then write it down. But sometimes literally bypasses the head and goes through the arm and, or like typing, right? The arms, and you don't even know what you're typing. And then you look at it later. So it happens in a different, a couple of different ways. It depends on his method.
If I could, I would say that, and Dave, correct me on this, but I would say that Tolkien's style was less of an automatic writing, in a sense that, like you said, everything I've encountered on automatic writing is you're in a meditative or altered consciousness and unaware of what you wrote until much later. I would say a better terminology would almost be like automatic knowledge, in that, like, to take this outside of Tolkien for a second, Tesla, when he did his inventions, talked about he had to sit around with a notebook with him everywhere he went, because when an engine came to him, it literally appeared in his mind or visually like a 3D hologram. and he could interact with it, take it apart, know it, and he had to write it down, because if he didn't, then that information was in essence gone, and he wouldn't be able to pull it back up.
It was more similar to that.
So basically, one comes through claircognizance, and I'll type that up, because claircognizance is a knowing. Okay, we'll call it clear knowing. Okay. So that is a different procedure than automatic writing, because automatic writing bypasses the head. It doesn't go to the head. It's not a knowing at all. It literally comes through the body, and the body through the hands can write or type or what have you, but the head is not aware of what's happening until after the process. Okay. I think that you guys are right. I think that Tolkien was consciously aware and realizing he was receiving downloads of what was happening and what was communicated to him, and he himself was writing it down just to keep it. And again, we talked about this before, where some of the things from the information from the other side can fade out of our memory if we don't get it really fast, because it's like fresh. There is definitely a veil between the two planes, okay, like of information. And so when we bring back information from the other side, we have to do it really quickly in order to know what we're doing, okay? Because we can lose it very quickly. And if any of you want to test that theory, just try remembering your dreams without writing them down. Like, a couple hours later, you won't be able to. Okay. Starflower says, thank you for clarifying. Awesome. And Arendur says, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Aluis or Alawis are following Ali bin Abu Talib, who was cousin of Muhammad. Okay. I'm not sure what that has to do with shamanism and Tolkien, but okay. I mean, I highlighted your comment. I don't know what it's about. Oh, that they're versions of Zoroastrianists. Okay, I see. Okay. So Marianne Dole says, about commonality, I think it shows the interconnectedness of people. Also, if there is time, I would like to hear the end notes with the examples of Tolkien's shamanism. Thank you. So within the end notes, Dave, do we have some of the shamanism in the end notes, or are we discussing that in the body of your paper?
Well, I referred to it. It would be end note 8, I believe, where I go into and it's basically on somebody else's blog that listed him. Bruce Charlton, I believe his name is. He's okay.
Is that the one that I read aloud?
I don't remember what you read aloud.
Okay, we're going to go back. Okay, Marianne, before we go further, we will go back.
It is end note 8.
I'm going to switch back.
It is end note. It is end note 8, though. I don't think you read that.
Okay. Most of the entire Notion Club papers deals with the subjects of detailed historical visions, intense imagination, and hallucinations of mysterious languages. For these particular concepts, though, the references are lucid dreams, encounters with ghosts, and psychometry. So those links are in the document. One is notionclubpapers.blogspot.com/search. Okay, so just go to the search bar and look for the term lucid dreaming, and it'll show up. Okay.
And that's on Bruce Charlton's blog. He specializes in the Notion Club papers, and he's had that blog since like 2008, I think, is when he started it.
Okay, so the second link of the 3 is called Encounters with Ghosts. This is also searchable, but without going crazy there, we can say it's at notionclubpapers.blogspot.com/2009/11/ and then hyphens in between all of these words. Ghosts in Notion Club Papers .html. Okay. And the last link would be psychometry. And this would be notionclubpapers.blogspot.com/2022/, and again, hyphens in between, Ramers, RAMERS, hyphen meteorite, hyphen identified, hyphen as, hyphen boulder, BOULDER.html. So I hope that helps you, Marianne, because I realize that you are visually challenged in this dimension, but you are not visually challenged in the other dimensions. So
tell me when I should go on.
Okay. So we were at the place, because now I lost my place. I apologize.
If you go to
EndNote, did read the quote from Humphrey Carpenter, correct?
Yeah, if you where we are now, if you go to EndNote 13 and down at the bottom and then click on it, it'll take you where we stopped. And this is what we're talking about before we got diverted. It's how the reason that these things can't be proved is because that's not what science does. It shows degrees of correlation, because it's not a mathematical theorem. Mathematical theorems can be proved or disproved because they don't relate to physical reality. Mathematics is its own separate science. It doesn't. The other scientists use mathematics to describe things, but it in itself is its own non-physical thing. So
yeah, and I guess that they're and that's the, if you will, problem with language, because I do think that, like, if we could telepathically communicate what we see, it would be so much easier, right?
Right.
Or what we witness, like we see this, because when we talk about pictures as 1,000 words. We can instead just visually just here's what it is, and 1,000 words can translate in
that's why
a millisecond, right?
I'm a visual thinker on the autism spectrum. There's a lady, Temple Grandin, who wrote a book, Visual Thinking, My Life with Autism. She has the same sort of visual thought that I do. And so I oftentimes get frustrated with language because when I have to explain my visual thoughts, I have to chop off part of them because not all of it will fit in linguistic concepts. So even though I have a large vocabulary, it doesn't matter. The deficit is in the language itself. No matter which one you're speaking of,
absolutely.
Now if you speak different languages, you'll get.
Language is a tool for communication.
Right.
But at some point in our evolution, we're going to be able to do telepathy, and it will bypass language. I really do see that, and I think that it's kind of happening with these crazy ass devices that we have called phones, and text, shorthand, and it's already starting, but one day we're not even going to need this. We'll just be able to in our heads, just, be able to do that, and without implants. Okay. Right. Visual thinking, autism. What is the author's name? I'm going to look it up.
Her name is Temple Grandin.
How do you spell the last name?
Grandin. It should be called something. Thank you. It should be called something like Visual Thinking, My Life with Autism, or something very close to that title.
Okay, I'll find it, and that way I can link it in the comments later, because I'm not going to do it now. I'm just...
Yeah. Her material
It's all
was
over the
really
place.
interesting.
Yeah.
Her material was very interesting.
Very cool. I'll make sure that that's added to the video. So, okay. So we are now at the gold standard for that. Okay, brilliant. Take over, Dave.
The gold standard for that, and what I mean by that is the gold standard for correlation, which in physics, which unlike shamanism deals with phenomena which can be precisely measured, is 6 standard deviations from the mean, which they refer to as 6 sigmas. 6 sigmas translates to 1 chance in 500 million that a given result is a random fluke. In shamanism, we can't use tools of that sort because we can only name things, not assign meaningful numbers to them and actually measure anything. This is referred to as a nominal level of measurement, and the mathematical operations that can be performed on this type of data are limited. And in EndNote 14, I go into an explanation of why that's the case. And then I say, the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu is not 7 times more or less powerful than Aryan of the Legendarium, for example. I don't know if you want to go into 14. It's interesting to me, but it may not be interesting to someone who doesn't have a mathematical bent, although it does explain why you can't precisely measure things that you can only name, So it depends.
Okay, so what we can do is just maybe not read everything here, but what we can do is say that the mathematical operations are not meaningful because of lack of order and non-numeric nature.
Right.
Or non-numeric nature, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Meaning that when you see something, you can't really measure it. Like you can't say, oh, this is the first level, this is the second level. That's more of a third dimensional thing. Like, you're heavier than another person. You're more powerful than another person because you can measure things. Measurement, and by the way, this is probably why time does not exist on the other side as well. Okay, on the other veils. Time is also a measurement, right?
Exactly. Right. Yes.
So
exactly.
It's kind of similar. So I could see how that would work. So anybody needing to look at that, go ahead and just reference the document. But that's the main gist of what's going on here. It's more or less for communicating that Dave is a mathematical as well as a visual thinker.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, and since I do recognize that a lot of people are not into mathematics as deeply as I am, I want to explain. I don't want to just say, well, you can't do that. I want to show why you can't do that, or why if you did, it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't mean anything,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that just even though I'm not I'm not entirely not mathematical, but what I can see is that when you're in the other realms, the measurements of everything go out the window, and what I notice especially is that's a very dominant theme with time. And the reason being is that you can get information ahead of time, as you noticed in the prior reading that you did, when Tolkien had a complete vision about something in 1945 that literally happened in 1987.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
You can do that, but if you would have probably said Tolkien, how do you know what's going on? That just was kind of something that was it was not it's not that there's a fixed calendar on the other side that, everything, because there is a lot of flow and everything is present and all at once, and past, present, future is all together all the time, and it's always changing. So the fact that he nailed it as much as he nailed it is pretty awesome. That is very hard to do. Very hard to do, even if you are precognizant. Okay, that's very hard to do.
And pretty much everything that he described in the story actually took place, just the timing was 4 months later. instead of June, it was October, but
Yeah. But considering that it was 40 some odd years in the past when he predicted that, I'm going to give him a break of 4 months.
Right.
Seriously. Yeah. So, okay. So we're down at one Ken, however, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, like, since we diverted a lot, I'll read the last sentence before. The Japanese sun goddess. This is why you can't measure things exactly when you can only name them. The Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu is not 7 times more or less powerful than Arya of the Legendarium, for example.
Right.
One can, however, feel that a shamanic perception or parts of the mythology feel intrinsically right. For example, in Norse mythology, Thor embodies the essence of thunder, representing its power and might. This symbolic representation at the nominal level allows for a cultural interpretation that resonates with the beliefs and values of the society. Meanwhile, scientifically, thunder is understood as a shock wave created by the rapid expansion of air due to lightning. Recognizing both perspectives enriches our understanding of how different cultures interpret natural phenomena while also appreciating the underlying physical processes. Or, as Tolkien put it in On Fairy Stories, if we could go backwards in time, the fairy story might be found to change in details, or to give way to other tales, but there would always be a fairy tale as long as there was any Thor. When the fairy tale ceased, there would be just thunder, which no human ear had yet heard. And I've always thought that was a very powerful statement. Now you're going back
very much
before there were humans, and there were animals, of course, could hear the thunder and either be frightened or in awe of it, but they wouldn't make up stories about it, most likely. So in other words, there probably wouldn't be a thunder tiger, on a mountaintop in China somewhere, making up, a tiger making up a story of a thunder tiger in the sky roaring, and that's what caused the sound. That's a human process.
Yeah.
And
very,
I'll go on.
Very interesting.
Yeah. This rightness of fit is a quality that is commonly recognized in Tolkien's work. For instance, in Peter Jackson's film *The Fellowship of the Ring*, the opening voiceover states, "History became legend, legend became myth, and for 2,500 years the ring passed out of all knowledge." This concept likely originates from the Notion Club papers, wherein the character Wilfred Jeremy remarks, "I have a queer feeling that, if one could go back, one would find not myth dissolving into history, but rather the reverse, real history becoming more mythical, more shapely, simple, discernibly significant, even seen at close quarters, more poetical and less prosaic, if you like. A subtly different but more accurate statement." And the next one is
there you go. A subtly different but more accurate statement. Yeah. Very interesting, because we tend to think of facts in the third dimension is better than story, better than perception, better than all of this stuff. But
right, that's the common perception.
I really believe that myth, when we lose all the facts and the details and the archaeological evidence and all of those things, but the stories still stick in our consciousness. And I really do believe that is the essence. That is the important thing. Okay.
Exactly.
So whatever your, and this is to all religious backgrounds listening, okay, whatever your connection to that place is, whether it's through, with the Abrahamic traditions, it would be, the Talmud or, the Bible, okay, or the, and I'm trying to think, for Islam, their book,
Quran.
Oh my gosh. The Quran, thank you. Oh my goodness. Why did I brain fart on that? Okay. So those kinds of things are like your body of material, but then there's other ones that are different bodies of material. So for instance, in Hinduism, they have a complete different body of material, Zen, and then also all of the, like, I guess, if you will, Abrahamic religions, like meaning, and I'm talking about all over the world, okay, like whether they're European countries, whether they're Far Eastern or, you know, Middle Eastern countries, whether they are North American, South American, islands, you know, Australia, like, you know, New Zealand, everything, okay, like all around the world, that there would be a body of material that the myth is still singing in people's energy, in their field, in their DNA, and it's still active, even if it's dormant. Okay.
Exactly.
So I love that. That is a very wonderful statement, a subtly different but more accurate statement. I love that. That's such a fantastic quote. Is this a good place to pause to see, like, if we have comments and whatnot? And go ahead.
I was just going to say yes, because I'm going to move on to the next topic. Okay,
so we'll come back to Tolkien's logical post-processing of received material. But Dakyndre, did you have anything to add while I go look at the comments? So go ahead and, you know, like if you have anything to say, go for it.
I did like on the second part of the quote where they were talking about like history becoming mythical. I think a perfect example of that outside of our path would be the whole thing with Homer's like Iliad and the Odyssey, where he's writing about like the stories of like Helen of Troy and, you know, the face that launched, like, you know, a war. And for the longest time, historians were like, oh yeah, that's a lovely myth, that's a great story, but it's completely fictional, there's no, you know, anything. And then they eventually they were doing their archaeology, they dug through like, I think it was like 10 different cities on top of what's there now. They dug through 10 different cities, tracing like 1,000 years or something insane. It was like maybe even further, only to find out that the city of Troy actually existed at some point. So, but they were arguing for so long whether it was fact or fiction.
In the 19th century, they thought that was most of the 19th century they thought it was just
Dave,
it's just a story.
That again? You know? Dave, can you say that again? We didn't hear you.
So I said for most of the 19th century, they thought that it was just that there wasn't any real Troy. It was just made up. You know, it was just a story.
Oh, right.
They actually,
And then when they found Troy, then they were like, oh, well, apparently this can be considered at this point a historical, you know, retelling, most likely, but ultimately it's not. It doesn't matter. It's like what was real had actually become a myth. So I think that very much happens in reality, and a lot of the stories, you know, it's not so much whether they were true or not, but the impact that they have on the individuals.
Right.
Yeah, very good.
Did we have any comments?
We do, and so quite a few, but I'm trying to sort them. So first off, Marianne wants to thank us for reading the note. She also adds, this is awesome. She says, I think Tolkien said this very well in his poem Mythopoeia.
Yes, that's several.
Yeah, that's in one of the references.
Yeah.
But I thought that, you know, that would be a really good thing to add. It looks like, I think it posted twice. Okay. So, and Merlin says, yeah, that's crazy about Troy. So let me scan up because it looks like there's a stream that was kind of done here. So I got to figure out where where we ended it. Okay, this was the first area. Okay, so Arondur says, like clairvoyance, maybe the knowledge had been loaded to the soul. It will come to the mother's womb. Yazidism okay, and I'm guessing I'm saying that right, is a Kurdish religion, and I'm a Kurd, but I am a Muslim, okay? And that's the thank you for reading the note. I have many lucid dreaming experiences, but I can't control my dreams. Okay, yes, I guess that, yeah, part of the definition of lucid dreaming is the ability to navigate or control the dreams, but I guess that what you mean by lucid dreaming is that you have a really clear vision and you remember when you wake up, okay? He says, wow, 19 pages, how many days will it be? And I don't know what that refers to. I'm sorry, I'm just not, I'm sorting too many things. Do you know what the 19 pages would be about, Dave?
It might just be about the document here. Let me see.
The document?
Yeah,
the actual Tolkien and Shamanism document. Yeah, okay,
right,
yes.
right.
That is 19 pages long.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a copy of what we're looking at online today, you can get it by being a free member of Patreon. Autism is a gift, I think, because I'm an autistic guy. Today is Tolkien's commemoration day, by the way. And that would, oh yeah, September 2nd. Yeah. Okay. That's right. So yeah, that's the day that he left the plains, let's just say. So thank you so much for the comments. Okay. I think we're going to get back to the document. Dakyndre, you said everything you wanted to say, right? Just double checking.
Correct.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, Dave, take it away. Tolkien's logical post-processing of received material.
After Tolkien received his shamanic insights and hastily wrote them down, often with increasing speed as he's trying to capture the details of a fading dream, he would then engage his logical side with the material. And that there's a endnote 17 there that basically gives evidence of that he did that. In other words, I'm just not stating that without evidence. Like,
right.
I basically
the footnote itself.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is good. And I think that it's excellent to over-endnote everything. This happens frequently and repeatedly in the works that we have access to. Likely more instances exist in the unpublished materials. I shall give 2 citations by Christopher here, which are characteristic of the pattern. Number 1 is, the notes are written in ink or 2 sides of a single sheet of paper in the order presented here in handwriting that is initially clear and careful, but steadily devolves into what is finally a considerably hastier and more challenging scrawl. And that is in the etymological notes of the Osanwe Kenta. The second reference is, the narrative ends here. There is no reason to think that any more was ever written. The manuscript, which becomes increasingly rapid toward the end, peters out in a scrawl. The Lost Road. So that totally explains that theory to me. So there's no question about what was going on there.
And then I'll go on. This process is intriguing because it shows how he treated his first draft. He treated his first draft as a historical text, approaching it as a scholarly editor would. When revising a first draft, Tolkien's method was akin to preparing an edition of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight or Beowulf. Thus, when Tolkien revised his own first draft, he was trying to understand what the author, that is himself, actually meant. He was aware of the possibility of transcription errors or distortions that might have occurred during the process of writing. He also recognized that the author was writing from a position of incomplete knowledge and was subject to bias. Viewing the source text in this way also allowed selective re-engagement with his shamanic side for the portion of the narrative under consideration. And I explained that. Author Ursula Hurley gives a useful overview of how this might work and how such a state might be accessed. The dialogue between what some might call the conscious and unconscious mind, and what others see as the interaction between the left and right brain, or between reason and intuition, is a paradigm that is repeated everywhere in discourses on creative writing. It is found in craft books and the repertoire of exercises that teachers of writing develop to allow the silent mind to be heard. Often it involves techniques to distract the rational mind, to encourage spontaneity, and to quieten the inner critic so that our instincts have a chance to surface. And then after the quote, I go on. I will state as a matter of personal experience, though, that this does work better if you have some shamanic talent in addition to a strong logical framework. Although I'm a scientific writer, not a creative one. I call this process cognitive mode switching.
Hmm.
In any event, this unusual creative method led to some significant compositional changes. For example, in the History of Middle-earth volume, The Return of the Shadow, home volume 6, covering the writing of the first part of The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien originally wrote about the hobbits hiding from a horseman who stopped and sniffed the air. Initially, this horseman was intended to be Gandalf, and the hobbits were hiding to surprise him with an ambush. That is to say, a friendly ambush. However, during the course of the revision, the sniffing horseman transformed into a black rider, and the hobbits were hiding in fear of him. The core incident remained, but its significance was inverted. This is a remarkable way of writing. Most writers probably know what they mean in their first draft, and through revising and redrafting, they aim to get their expression closer to that known meaning. But Tolkien did the opposite. He generated the first draft and then examined it as if it had been written by someone else, trying to decipher its meaning. In this case, he eventually decided that it meant something quite different from its original form, replacing a friendly wizard with a hostile Nazgul, and a friendly ambush with hiding in fear. In his own words, he had discovered what really happened. And he used, as we discussed earlier, he uses what really happened a lot to describe his writing process.
Right. Wow.
Should I go next to the Mythopoeia section, or did we have any other comments?
So here we go. I bow not yet before the Iron Crown, nor cast my own small golden scepter down. And so we have some art here, and I'm going to try to get the whole thing into the picture. So it looks like a prism. It looks like a prism with a rainbow, but several other rays coming out in the white light or blue, depending on how you see it.
Right.
So, okay.
And I say, the lines above come from Tolkien's poem Mythopoeia. This is a poem which he dedicated to his friend C.S. Lewis, in order to show him that myth does not consist of lies breathed through silver. That was C.S. Lewis's term. But instead conveys facts and deeper truths. That is what the poem is really all about. The poem explores the power of myth and creation, emphasizing imagination and storytelling's role in shaping the world. Tolkien highlights the significance of poets and creators in reflecting deeper truths in human experiences through myths and legends. He delves into the themes of good and evil, reality, and the human spirit, celebrating storytelling's enduring power to bring light and hope. Tolkien asserts that humans are sub-creators who, through their imaginative endeavors, reflect a divine act of creation. The text highlights that man, as a sub-creator, reflects the single white ray, was symbolic of the divine creation, into many hues and endlessly combined living shapes that move from mind to mind. This concept underscores the idea that creators have the power to breathe life into their creations, shaping and enriching the world with their imaginative works. Moreover, this text acknowledges the right of creators to engage in myth-making and sub-creation, emphasizing that this right has not decayed over time. It underscores the idea that creators make by the same law in which they're made. That's a quote from the poem, signifying the enduring nature of their creative endeavors. The legends transcend time, reflecting human experiences, hopes, and fears, and preserving the essence of the human spirit. These creators are praised for kindling hearts with the legendary fire and illuminating the present and the past with the light of unseen suns, symbolizing the timeless power of storytelling and its impact on human consciousness and culture. Tolkien rejects the idea of modern progress as a linear and inevitable force, suggesting that it can lead to a sterile and meaningless existence. He concludes that in paradise, humans will continue to create and imagine without the taint of evil or falsehood, an idea also found in the Legendarium Ragnarok, known as Dakyndre. And I have a link to what Dakyndre is and
Yeah,
all the
let's go to that just briefly before we head out. So, a good collated list of all statements concerning this event are found in the Wayback Machine link that is linked in the paper. So, great.
Should I go on?
So, in Mythopoeia.
In Mythopoeia, the concept of myth-making is deeply intertwined with the creative and transformative power of storytelling. While the text does not explicitly address shamanic thought, it does emphasize the profound role of creators, particularly poets, in shaping and enriching the human experience through their imaginative works. If we consider myth-making as a shamanic activity, as shown in the examples of What Exactly is Shamanism section, we can draw parallels between a shaman's role as a spiritual guide and healer and a poet's role in Mythopoeia. Both the shaman and the poet are depicted as conduits of wisdom, insight, and transformative energy. They hold the power to illuminate the unseen and kindle the human spirit with their creative endeavors. Moreover, the text celebrates the enduring nature of myths and legends, which are often intertwined with shamanic traditions in various cultures. These myths serve as a source of wisdom, guidance, and spiritual nourishment, reflecting the profound connection between storytelling, spirituality, and the human quest for meaning. And then and a copy of the poem. Just a second here.
So we have
a copy of the poem can be read online there.
Yeah.
That's the whole poem in the first link, and the second link goes into some detail on the background surrounding its origin. How C.S. Lewis said that lies breathe through silver, and how Tolkien reacted, and so forth. It's sort of a little mini history.
Oh, I see. So the thing that I noticed about that is that in the Druid tradition, meaning the modern version, not the past version, because we just don't have enough information because of the way that the nature of that is. There are 3 different dividing systems for druids, and the other 2 categories are ovets, which are more like diviners. So the druid is more or less like with all of this information, the spiritual information, the physical information, they make decisions on how to direct their people. Okay. The ovets are the ones actually doing the divination part. And there's an important role that I think is very tied in with the idea of the poet and the shaman, and combining those 2 things together, and that would be the bard. Okay.
Right.
I had always talked about Tolkien being the best bard that had probably existed in the last maybe 200 years, right? Just that he had the job. So in those times, the job of the bard was because they did not have writing, and they could have written. I think that the idea of this was that it was like a human library. The bard would be responsible for, auditorily, relaying every story that had ever come about. Right. And by doing so, they could update the stories that way. Okay. So their role was kind of like that they were the library. Okay, they were the oral library, and they had to remember everything. And so even at a young age, they were training. But that role of shamanism and the poet blending together, I think of a bard. I do. And I just wanted to say that before we carried on. And let me see if there's any. I'm going to look on my phone and see if there's any more comments.
Because the final section is longer than normal. So if people want to ask questions here. So.
I did want to
go
take
ahead,
just
Dave.
a moment.
Or I'm sorry, Dakyndre.
I did want to take a moment just on the comments and acknowledge that Jim is here. Hey, Jim,
hi,
good
Jim.
to see you.
Yay!
Oh, cool.
Awesome. Yay! It does look, and actually, I covered all the other comments. And oh, happy Labor Day! Thank you. May Allah bless Tolkien's soul and spirit, however you call it. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I exactly, and may he rest in peace. And he was referring to our document. So okay, so that answered that question. So I don't see anything else. So Dave, and Dakyndre, if you have anything else to add, do that now, and then we can start into the stewardship of nature and animism in the Legendarium section, because it is a long section.
Yeah, it's about twice as long as the other ones.
Yeah,
so
I'm all good here.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Should I go on?
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Stewardship of nature and animism in the Legendarium. In Tolkien's Legendarium, nature is depicted as having personhood through various elements such as plants, animals, water, earth, and rock. There are numerous examples of the personification of natural creatures and features, emphasizing nature's personhood. For instance, in The Lord of the Rings, Gandalf grieves over the holly trees of Holland, illustrating an emotional connection and care for nature. This interaction portrays nature as morally complex and worthy of empathy and consideration. The Ents are the quintessential examples of Tolkien's animating nature, giving it the power to resist its abuse. They care for the unpopulated landscapes of Middle-earth, particularly the uncultivated wilderness. The story highlights the Ents' attraction to sustainable agriculture, agrarian landscapes, gardens, and orchards, emphasizing their love and protection for the wildness of deep forests. That it may seem like speaking about two things there, but actually the Ent wives, the female Ents, were more attracted to gardens and growing things according to patterns, where the male Ents were more interested in wild nature. So that's why it may seem like it's speaking about two things, because it's speaking about two different genders of Ents there. So that's what that's about.
Okay.
Another
totally
example
makes sense to me.
Yeah. Another example is Tom Bombadil, who has enormous power over the Old Forest and represents a renunciation of control. His respectful and non-violent approach to nature further emphasizes the personhood of nature in Tolkien's writings. Even an ordinary fox in a chapter 3's company is described in animistic terms. And here's the quote. The hobbits curled up in their cloaks and blankets and were soon fast asleep. They set no watch. Even Frodo feared no danger yet, for they were still in the heart of the Shire. A few creatures came and looked at them when the fire had died away. A fox passing through the wood on business of his own stopped several minutes and sniffed. Hobbits, he thought. Well, what next? I've heard of strange doings in this land, but I have seldom heard of a hobbit sleeping outdoors under a tree. 3 of them. There's something mighty queer behind this. He was quite right, but he never found out any more about it.
Yeah.
Then I continue. In the Silmarillion, Tolkien refers to rivers as if they were people, omitting the article and using animate pronouns, he, him, his, for the rivers Sirion, Gellion, and Narog. These rivers play significant roles alongside human and elvish characters. In a chapter of Beleriand and its realms, the rivers take over the active narrative role from the elves, with the narration following their courses and describing their unique characteristics and dynamism. For example, Loud Sirion falls from the north in a mighty fall below the Meres, and then he plunges suddenly underground into great tunnels that the weight of his falling waters delved, and he issues again 3 leagues southward with great noise and smoke through the rocky arches at the foot of the hills which are called the Gates of Sirion. In contrast, Gellion had neither fall nor rapids throughout his course, but was ever swifter than Sirion. Ulmo, the creator god of water, differentiates between his rivers, loving Sirion and Gellion best, not as a creator taking pride in a finished work, but as one being loving another. Though the Silmarillion generally focus on more humanoid-centered themes than a chapter of Beleriand and his realms, it meticulously documents the defilement of water and the ravaging of lands throughout its narrative of long defeat. These events are carefully noted alongside significant occurrences such as the fall of cities or the death of kings. One of the most critical moments is the defilement of Hellevorn, a mountain lake that feeds the River Gellion, during the Battle of Sudden Flame. And the subsequent defile of Ivrin, the source of Sirion, is also highlighted. Glaurung the Uroloki, that is, fire dragon, passed over Angfoglith, and thence came to the north vales of Sirion, and there did great evil. Under the shadows of arid Wethrin he defiled Ethel Ivrin, and thence he passed into the realm of Nargothrond, and burned Talithinin, the guarded plain between Narog and Teglin. Glaurung's actions, burning a plain and defiling a water source, are unequivocally condemned as grave evils before he even reaches the elven city of Nargothrond. The narrative links the defilement of water with the fall of a kingdom, amplifying the tragic significance of both events. The damage to the land extends beyond these examples. Ard Galen, once a green plateau, is transformed into Angfoglith, the gasping dust, following its devastation in the Battle of Sudden Flame. The land perished, as Tolkien describes, with its grasses consumed by fire, leaving it a barren, lifeless waste full of choking dust. The choice of the term perished and the vivid description of the scorched landscape underscored the destruction of each river or field is unique. The destruction of each river or field is a unique, singular tragedy, the death of a living entity rather than just a loss of resources. Centrally, the two trees are portrayed as the ultimate expression of the natural world in Tolkien's mythos. They represent the sum of all Yavanna's creative power and purposes concerning plants, serving as potent symbols of natural warmth, light, beauty, and great worth. They are described as the most mystically significant symbols in all of Tolkien's writings. The trees are also the source of light and life in the world, providing surpassing beauty that ushered in the days of the bliss of Valinor. Their beauty inspired Feanor, the greatest of the Noldor craftsmen, to capture their light in the three Silmarils, which were considered to hold the fates of Arda, earth, sea, and air. Furthermore, the trees are appreciated, valued, and sanctified by the divine agents, the Valar, many thousands of years before the arrival of elves and men in Middle-earth. This highlights the significance of symbols of natural creation and sanctity. These examples show how Tolkien's work personifies natural creatures and features, portraying them as morally complex entities with their own relationships, emotions, and resistance to external forces. This approach underscores their individuality and significance within the Legendarium. Additionally, Tolkien's texts highlight the creative and transformative nature of myth-making, illustrating the sub-creator's role as a conduit of wisdom, insight, and transformative energy. This role parallels that of a shaman, who acts as a spiritual guide and healer, using their creative endeavors to reveal the unseen and inspire the human spirit. Turning now to Tolkien's personal views of nature, we must delve into a bit of biography. Tolkien was born in South Africa in 1892, but moved to England at the age of 3.5. His memories of South Africa were limited, except for a frightening encounter with a great hairy spider. In England, Tolkien lived in various places during his childhood, including the rural hamlet of Sarehole, the urban city of Birmingham, and suburban King's Heath. Sarehole, along with the farmer's mill, he remembered fondly, and inspired the farmer's mill he remembered fondly inspired the Shire in his works. In a BBC interview, Tolkien said, and that's where Lisa can cue up the actual audio, so you can hear him talking instead of me.
Okay, let me see if I can. It may have to be shared, and then I have to come back to the document.
Right.
So
okay.
I might not be able to play it and then have them hear it at the same time. So yeah, I'll switch out. Okay. Oh, hey, Astrophil. We have an opinion about Rings of Power, and it may not be popular. Just letting you know, Erendur. But you can absolutely enjoy them. And so Astrophel says, sorry, she's late. Hey, no worries. Thank you for coming by. So we have stop screen. Okay, so we can stop the screen for now. And I'll find the video.
It should be possible to play it. I mean, we did it before, but we were using a
well,
different
earlier,
version.
but I have
Yeah.
I had to undo the document first.
Oh, I see. Right.
In order to do that.
Right.
The Shire is very like the kind of world in which I first became aware of things. Very like. Which was perhaps more poignant to me because I wasn't born in it. I was born in Bloemfontein, South Africa. I was very young when I got back. At the same time, it bites into your memory and imagination, even if you don't think it has. If your first Christmas tree is a wilting eucalyptus, and if you're normally troubled by heat and sand, then to have just at the edge of imagination is opening out, suddenly find yourself in a quiet Warwickshire village. I think it engenders a particular love of what you might call central Midland English countryside based on good water stones and elm trees and small quiet rivers and so on. And of course, sort of rustic people about. The Shire is very like the kind of world in which I first became aware of things. Very like. Which was perhaps more poignant to me because I wasn't born in it. I was born in Bloemfontein, South Africa.
It's actually peeing now.
I was very young when I got back. At the same time,
Yes.
it bites into your memory and imagination, even if you don't think it has. If your first Christmas tree is a wilting eucalyptus, and if you're normally troubled by heat and sand, then to have just at the edge of imagination is opening out, suddenly find yourself in a quiet Warwickshire village. I think it engenders a particular love of what you might call central Midland English countryside based on good water stones and elm trees and small quiet rivers and so on. And of course, sort of rustic people about.
Okay. So we got that, and so we actually have the quote typed out in the paper. So
some people have he even during his lifetime he said some people couldn't understand him because he spoke rapidly. So
correct.
In case you couldn't understand him, it's all typed
twice.
Yeah.
And we have the actual quote in the document as well. So if you want to read it aloud, or even silently, you can. I am getting the document back in the screen right now.
Okay.
So I'm coming back. Okay, here we go. And okay, I caught all the comments, so everything's fine. So let me go ahead and put present, share screen, and I think that I still need entire screen. Oh, I can actually do the document now for some reason. Okay, I'll take it. So where it says in a BBC interview, Tolkien said, the Shire is a very like the kind of world in which I first became aware of things, very like, which was perhaps more poignant to me because I wasn't born in it. I was born in Bloemfontein, South Africa. I was very young when I got back, but at the same time, it bites into your memory and imagination, even if you don't think it has. If your first Christmas tree is a wilting eucalyptus, and if you're normally troubled by heat and sand, then to have to have just at the age when imagination is opening out, suddenly find yourself in a quiet Warwickshire village, I think it engenders a particular love of what you might call central Midlands English countryside, based on good water, stones and elm trees, and small quiet rivers, and so on, and of course, rustic people about. So that's what he said.
Should I go on?
Yeah, we'll go ahead, and where it says exploring the countryside,
right.
I'll let you take over.
Okay. Exploring the countryside with his brother Hillary, and that was in the video. That was the two kids there. J.R.R. was the one on the left, and his brother Hilary was the younger, smaller one
Yeah.
on the right. Exploring the countryside with his brother Hilary, Tolkien developed a deep love for plants, especially trees, and found human maltreatment of them as hard to bear as some people find the ill treatment of animals. Orphaned at the age of 12, Tolkien longed for the idyllic Sourhole, gentle parental guidance, and a cooperative community. He found refuge in Catholicism as Father Francis from his church cared for him and arranged his schooling. Tolkien fell in love with a non-Catholic woman named Edith Brott, and was eventually sent to the Somme during World War I. In a trench in France, he began writing the first stories of the Legendarium. After J.R. Tolkien married Edith Brott, they continued to correspond until settling into married life in late 1918. During this time, they wrote several hundred letters to each other, which provide valuable insights into Tolkien's undergraduate days and his war service. The legendary materials, including the Silmarillion, originated during this period. Tolkien's working methods were meticulous and extensive, involving detailed histories, languages, and mythologies for his creation. The invention of names was a significant aspect of his work, with unique and evocative names for characters, places, and objects, drawing from various linguistic traditions and his linguistic expertise. A remarkable aspect of Tolkien's creative process was his development of the Elven languages, primarily Quenya and Sindarin. Quenya was inspired by Finnish and Latin, while Sindarin drew influences from Welsh and Old English. His philological expertise allowed him to create fully developed grammars, vocabularies, and writing systems. He also explored the etymological roots of words, adding depth and authenticity to his linguistic creations. The Elven languages were not just literary devices, but a testament to Tolkien's passion for language and his desire to create an immersive world. Their development reflects his dedication to constructing a cohesive and believable mythology for his Legendarium. Tolkien continued to work on the Silmarillion in old age, with his son, Christopher Tolkien, later organizing and preparing it for publication as his literary executor. In all his tales, trees are spoken of with reverence. Not long before his death, Tolkien responded to an article in the Daily Telegraph on June 29, 1972, which used his name to describe gloom related to forestry. In this letter, Tolkien wrote, "With reference to the Daily Telegraph on June 29th, page 18, I feel it's unfair to use my name as an adjective qualifying gloom, especially in a context dealing with trees. In all my works, I take the part of trees as against all their enemies. Lothlorien is beautiful because there the trees were loved. Elsewhere, forests are represented as awakening to consciousness of themselves. The old forest was hostile to two-legged creatures because of the memory of many injuries. Fangorn Forest was old and beautiful, but at the time of the story tense with hostility because it was threatened by a machine-loving enemy. Mirkwood had fallen under the domination of a power that hated all living things, but was restored to beauty and became Greenwood the Great before the end of the story. It would be unfair to compare the Forestry Commission with Sauron because, as you observe, it is capable of repentance. But nothing it has done that is stupid compares with the destruction, torture, and murder of trees perpetrated by private individuals and minor official bodies. The savage sound of the electric saw is never sound wherever trees are still found growing." Tolkien views trees differently than most of us. While many overlook trees, seeing them merely as a green backdrop to our daily lives, Tolkien perceived them as living, breathing entities. He felt a vibrant life coursing through them, saw their faces in their corrugated bark, and heard their voices. And below that, there's a picture of...
I would say that any shaman of any tradition that I'm aware of would all say that trees are immensely wise and old beings and much smarter than any of us.
Exactly. I mean that's been my experience. Yeah.
Every single tradition. So, and even traditions where there were not trees like really around in their environment, they have a completely different kind of shamanism.
Right.
You know, so, but trees are very revered in my knowing of every tradition that has them. So,
And if you scroll down, I put in a picture of Becky Falls Waterfall and Dartmoor National Park in the UK. So
let me see if I can fit this into the whole screen here. At 125. Oh, good grief. Yeah, it looks like I could fit it. Mm-hmm. So, landscape of Becky Falls Waterfall in Dartmoor National Park, UK. Yeah. So we'll expand that back out.
Should I go on?
Yes, you can.
Okay. In late August 1952, Tolkien stayed with his friend George Sayre and his wife Moira in Malvern. The Sayres had read a typescript of The Lord of the Rings and encouraged Tolkien to record excerpts, which he did after jocularly reciting the Lord's Prayer in Gothic to exorcise any devils in the machinery. It was easy to entertain Tolkien by day, Sayre recalled. And this is a quote from George Sayre. He and I tramped the Malvern Hills, which he had often seen during his boyhood in Birmingham, or from his brother's, Hilary Tolkien's, house on the other side of the Severn Valley. He lived the book, The Lord of the Rings, as he walked, sometimes comparing parts of the hills with, for instance, the White Mountains of Gondor. We drove to the Black Mountains on the borders of Wales, picked bilberries, and climbed to the head of there. When he saw signs of industrial pollution, he talked of orcs and orcery. And below that is a picture of what the Malvern Hills look like.
Well, how beautiful is that, you guys? Wow.
And like you said, on the right hand side, that trail that goes up over the top of the hills, and
you could really see a view from there. Yeah. And what was really uncanny is that I saw a similarity. Now, probably the trees are nothing like the trees that would be in the landscape that I'm familiar with. But I will tell you that in Southern California, there are places that look like this, but the trees are different. But the way that the hills are and the trails and all of that, there are places like that in Southern California too. I'm sure that there's also places elsewhere where there's this kind of rolling mountains and trails and trees, right, and like of various sizes. So I bet that this kind of resonates with lots of people when they look at this picture, because they probably have been in an environment similar at some point. So
okay, now we're coming to the final section. So
yeah,
tell me what I should start reading.
Well, let me just double check and make sure that we don't have any comments like that are additional.
Okay.
Okay. Starflower says how beautiful and magical, and Arundur says I love Quenya so much. Long live to Quenya. So okay, great. So we can keep going.
Okay. Tolkien believed that primeval human understanding was communion with other living things. Tolkien's Catholic Christian background and his deep love for natural features interact to create an ecological ethic indebted to the stewardship model, but in which humanity does not have a monopoly on stewardship, and in which the value of non-human creation comes directly from its personhood. Finally, these central themes were adopted by the environmental and counterculture movements in the decades following the publication of The Lord of the Rings, particularly in relation to environmentalism. Frodo's journey to Mordor with the ring paralleled the real-world activism. In 1971, a group of activists sailed to the nuclear exclusion zone in Amchitka, that's one of the islands near Alaska, with a copy of The Lord of the Rings aboard their boat, the Greenpeace, marking the birth of the international organization. This is just one example of Tolkien's impact on environmentalism. The nostalgia embedded throughout The Lord of the Rings provided readers in the 60s and 70s with an escape from the visible daily strife of their time, heightened by the advent of television and Technicolor. This nostalgia inspired a longing to return to a simpler life before the strife caused by divisive lust for resources, such as colonization and the Industrial Revolution. However, the success and allure of The Lord of the Rings lay in its refusal to offer pure escapism. A sense of mission and drive pervades the books, making them relatable to readers during the counterculture movements. Tolkien's causes resonated with them, becoming important issues in their own lives, as they are important to like-minded readers like-minded people to this day. And that's the end of the actual paper. There are two appendices after this. The first one is the
Yeah.
difference between shamanism, mediumship, and channeling. But if you want to check from, do you want me to
Before
read
we
it
go,
now? Okay.
I wanted to touch on, and this will be a future video, maybe by me, I'm not sure, but as far as the language part is concerned, my stance, and this is not to include Dave or even anybody, okay, this is like literally how I feel about Tolkien and shamanism and how the languages intermarry. And I believe that whomever Tolkien was working with when he was doing shamanic journeying to, you know, like in order to bring these stories first, I do believe that these beings that he was working with taught him the languages and also relayed the stories to him. So I think that it was kind of a thing where, and because he has, and I'm talking about Tolkien, he has a really good linguistic ability, like innately, like when he was a child, he was making up languages, right? Like who does that, right? And so I think that these beings actually recognize that it's like, hey, we can tell our whole mythology to this human. And even though it happened like maybe a long time ago on this planet, and it got lost to time because many ancient civilizations have been lost to time. Like there's so many that we don't even know about. Everything that we see that survives to today is a very small part of like what actually has happened in all of these, you know, hundreds of thousands of years, right? Exactly. And I feel, and even like in just the last couple thousand years, like we've had a lot of things disappear that we have no record of because of the way that things are. So I feel that these beings had relayed their languages and taught him the languages as well as told him the stories of their history and their meaning. So when people say, oh, you know, I really wish Tolkien was real, like I really feel like it's real, I think that this is the reason. Like I really do believe that he recaptured a mythology for the masses, yeah. and that it actually, once he wrote the story, because, you know, he was probably thinking, oh, this is for me, how special, like, you know, or whatever, and nobody's gonna get this. But then when people were interested, he's like, okay, well, maybe, you know, maybe this needs to go to the wider world. And so, but his background being that he was not only a Catholic, but also scholarly, he couldn't really be open, like, and communicate about his process, even though there are clues everywhere about what his process was. They're all over the place, as Dave has so eloquently put in this paper. But
well, and there was a, you know, since he was an academic, there could have been a job problem if he started saying, well, I received this information. Yeah.
That was literally the second thing I was going to say was also he was in academia. So the fact that he was Catholic, he couldn't really talk about his spirituality and his shamanism. And the fact that he was an academic, the same thing. He could not talk about his process. I mean, he did, but it's like veiled in, you know, like where people might overlook if they're not looking. Okay. But people that know, people that are shamanically thinking, people who are spiritual, they dig a little bit into Tolkien and they will know, oh, wow, this wasn't just imagination. This was literally a retelling of a mythos that had disappeared. And it literally came back to life through Tolkien. And for me, I am so, you know, happy that this happened because otherwise I may, in this life, in this time, in 2024, okay, I would maybe never have like a real connection to a mythology the way that I connect to Tolkien. So I just wanted to say that in this video. And Dakyndre, did you have anything to add before we go into the appendix number 1?
I actually did. I wanted to, with what you just said, I wanted to agree with that. For me, in the 25 years I've been studying different metaphysical paths and going through, I've liked pieces of all of them, but I've never, until I really started looking at the Tolkien mythos, I never really found anything that I would have resonated with. I would have always just said, I'm spiritual, but I don't have a particular path, because I didn't find anything that I considered deeply and truly profound. It all kind of just seemed to be variations of what was already out there. Additionally, we talk about the Tolkien thing, and Dave, and we have it somewhere in our email threads, but Tolkien very much admitted, as Dave and we've seen, that he believed all of this, because there was that, we talk about it, but you can find that clip that we have.
Yeah, it's
where,
in the FAQ.
In the FAQ, where
yeah.
in the 60s, he was interviewed, and the question from that interviewer was, the stories you wrote, the Valar, everything you've wrote down, do you believe it to be real? Do you believe them to be true physical beings? And he went into a 10-second pause where he just sat there and was like, I'm not answering this. And then the guy was like, well, would you consider yourself a deist? And he was like, well, I've always been a Catholic. You know, I'm a practicing Catholic. So the fact that he didn't answer that question was so profound to the fact that he believed the Valar are real. He believed his work was true.
Yeah, I think it was actually,
but he just couldn't say it.
I think it was actually about 12 seconds, because I actually timed it. And in a live interview, that's forever. You may as well shut up for half an hour, you know.
Especially with Tolkien, that's so profound, when he usually answers all of the questions just spot on right away. That one, he just sat there and was like,
in the clip that we featured earlier, we saw how fast he speaks. Like he just rolls,
right?
You know,
yeah.
So he was rolling along in the interview, just like very fast, like all of that, and then stopped dead in his tracks at that question. And then when the announcer and the interviewer was kind of like, in a way, kind of retracting his question, then he began again.
Yeah.
So it was pretty obvious.
It was a restart. Yeah, it was a restart. Oh,
was
well, I'm a
deist,
yo.
What was going on to a person like us, who are like, are you sure that there, like the spiritual value and the material, like we could read through the lines and go, oh, he can't talk about this, Right. Not at this time, not in the 60s, and maybe not even in the 2000s, because I still think that there's still a lot of people who are very triggered by this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's less so nowadays, and thankfully for that, and thankfully we can talk about it freely on YouTube and to the public, and like what we're doing right now, and we don't have to hide behind anything, in order to do this. But at that time, Tolkien couldn't, but yet we still have, besides that big clue, which absolutely, maybe we should actually include the BBC interview in the comments afterwards, so that you guys can refer to the interview if you're not familiar with it.
It's in my FAQ. I even have it advanced to that point, so they don't have to listen to the whole thing. Yeah.
Which means that I don't have to type it in the interview, because I put the HackMD link already, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. And then the other thing is that like every time that he would like be writing with the Inklings or what have you, and they would be like, oh, wow, we love these stories, but what about this detail? What about that detail? What about the other detail? They wanted to know more deeply about it. And rather than him saying, oh, I need to rework that, or, oh, I need to reimagine that, he would say, oh, I have to go find out. What
literally,
does that mean?
I'd say, well, I have to find out.
He'd literally say he had to find out.
Yeah.
So that, and there's multiple references of that. So, you know, like that are not even in this paper. So, yeah, it's pretty clear to us that he was kind of in a way like living a double life, one in this dimension and one in the other dimension. And the correlation between the two were the body of the Legendarium. And thankfully we have it. Thankfully we have it. So, Dakyndre, are you done? And I'm going to check for comments. I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was sorry,
just double checking.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I'm good. There are some really good comments that have been posted.
Okay, I'm refreshing them on my screen right now. I apologize because if I change it on this, then you guys see all of my screen. Oh, there is a lot of comments. Okay, I'm gonna flip over because this is definitely worth highlighting for seeing. Okay, so. Okay, how beautiful and magical. Okay, Marianne says, though I've loved the natural world since childhood, reading Tolkien deepened my love and made me aware of the aliveness of that world. Wow, that is
me too.
So cool.
Yeah, that's what happened to me when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and Erendur says he prefers Eldarin instead of Quenya. Okay, that's fine. I think Tolkien had channeled to Palladian elves, and Marianne says the beauty of Quenya and Sindarin, more than any physical description, helped me understand the beauty of the elves. Wow. Okay, and what I'm thinking there is that it's not just seeing it in writing and the Tengwar, but like the sound of Elvish, and I'll tell you, I do think that this is the appeal to the languages in the stories. Like when we have a lot of patrons and we take a survey, and all of you, like practically all of you, are saying, we love the language. And, you know, of course, Dave is like, huh? He's scratching his head, doesn't understand. But
it just doesn't do it for me, that's all.
I will say this. I am auditory and musical. I can hear like tones and other things like that. I believe that the language, Elvish languages, and I'll say that for the group of them, but mostly Quenya and mostly Sindarin, okay, they're all related in families, okay, they all have origins in the same kind of, I guess, like the way that Yleric languages are for, you know, Hungarian, Finnish, etc. The way that Indo-European languages are like a group, like, you know, all the Latin languages are included in that. The Germanic languages, you know, English, everything. Okay, like most of the languages of Europe are Indo-European. Okay, I think that the Elvish family of languages, okay, that we'll just call it that, like, because they're all kind of related together, but particularly Quenya and Sindarin are very musical in effect and can even activate DNA, like meaning to sing it, like to sing. And I think that that's the appeal, that it awakens people, and maybe it even like vibrates their pineal gland and then they see things or whatever happens. But I definitely think that the languages are a magical tool in some fashion. I definitely feel that way. Now, whether it's your choice of magical tool or not, whether it's a way that you can deepen your understanding of the material or not, really doesn't matter. I think that it's just the vibration of it. It is very high in vibration, and I totally understand where that sentiment of the, quote, beauty of Quenya and Sindarin comes from. Thank you so much, Marianne. And that means so much to us, because you having visual challenges, okay, through blindness, okay, as the condition, okay, that you would call, disease or what have you, tells me that you have such a resonance with sound that maybe people that see don't have a clue about how deep your understanding of sound is, and that you can like actually tap into those realms through sound and through music and tones and those types of things, and that your ears kind of pick up more than your eyes can, because like you have other senses that compensate. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so awesome. Okay, we have, I'm going through the comments still, and I'm trying to go in order.
That's cool.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Nimue says, Dave, this document is wonderfully written. Thank you for sharing it with us. I have found it deeply meaningful and helpful in understanding my own experience. You are awesome. Truly great work. That's from Nimue. Thank you so much, Nimue.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Nimue is one of our, like, old school patrons, like from back in the day, and say hi to Draco for us. That's amazing. And our newest patron, Starflower, says, that is so fascinating, and this discussion and the WAL, like, like the way of Arda's lore is so integral to bring this out. Thank you so much. Oh, we can't wait to like actually get to meet you and like all of the stuff. Like, it's going to be so fun. Hey guys, what do you think about having kind of like an Ardacon or something like that? Like where we like all get to meet and like have a convention.
That would be cool.
Like, what would you think about that for like a weekend? Maybe we can hang out in Dave's neighborhood, because it's like kind of halfway between all of the places, right? In Georgia, like during the fall, like Enderi season or something like that. I live up in
the North Georgia mountains, and the colorful fall displays here are very similar to Vermont or New Hampshire. It's just that later in the year, more around Halloween time than earlier up there, but still,
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot of fun.
She continues. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dakyndre.
I was just gonna say, I think it'd be a lot of fun to be able to
all of us together.
Just kind of sit and, have like intense discussions in person. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, we can't wait to meet all of you. Like one day we're gonna have just the most awesome thing. But you know what? We'll just keep visualizing. Meanwhile, Starflower continues. She says, I have been studying Aramaic for 2 years now and feel that Quenya is also a sacred language with high spiritual vibrations. By the way, Arda and Arya, which is Aramaic, both mean earth. So that is very interesting. We also notice that there is a very high vibration to Sanskrit. And that there's even a set of fonts called the Sarati that like resonate with Sanskrit and some of the characters in Sanskrit language. So check that out. That will probably fascinate you. That is amazing. Aramaic, like we have now a person that studies Aramaic in our patrons. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
That's interesting to me because my wife is a metaphysical Christian, and she often she doesn't know Aramaic, but she often spoke about Jesus's original language and the writings in that mode and so forth. So that is interesting.
Yeah. So okay, so Astrophel says the works of Tolkien was unironically a factor to the starting of my practice. The way of elves is what brought me closer to nature, something I subconsciously yearned for as a kid. Wow. Wow. Like such juicy comments today. Wow. That's awesome. That is so awesome. And she says, Starflower, to me, Elven languages from all universes feel sacred in themselves. Any language that pertains to nature-oriented entities are bound to be high vibrational. I agree with that. There are other languages that like people are channeling in, like light languages. They do have a similar feel and vibration. They don't sound the same, but they do have a very similar effect on energy. And I think that it's wonderful. And Starflower said that she agreed. And then Erundur says Quenya is a light language. I would definitely agree with that. Sure. Jim says, I have to say it, Lisa, but when you were talking about Tolkien being a bard, as a student of different pagan paths, I missed the mention of Caradwen. Did I mention Caradwen, or did you mention Caradwen? Because I don't remember mentioning Caradwen.
You didn't.
I had mentioned the druid like path, but yeah, Caradwen. Okay, so if some of you who are visiting our channel like don't know, Caradwen is if you will, she is in the Irish pantheon, maybe the Celtic pantheon. Okay, so like it might be bigger than that, or like might be Welsh, or and she has a cauldron that she stirs everything in the world together and like creates the world out of. So it's such a wonderful metaphor to look into. So if you guys are curious about Caradwen, check that out. That's really cool. And thank you for that comment. Since you were a student, I'm trying to figure out how that works. Okay. If I didn't get this right, feel free to leave a comment down below, or like after the stream, if you are like, busy or anything. I will try my best to answer this question. Okay. Okay. And Starflower says, absolutely, the chanting. Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. Carvin Knowles has he has a CD called The Fellowship, in which some of the songs in there are sung in Elvish that he wrote, and it's really cool if you guys ever want to go check that out. One of them is called Seal Messe. Seal, S-I-L, Messe, M-E-S-S-E. You can search it on YouTube and find it. It's really beautiful. Okay. And Astrophel says that would be fun, and I'm guessing that she's referring to the Way of Arda's lore, Ardacon. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Marianne continues and says, I too am an auditory and music person. Years ago, I brailled the pronunciation guides for Quenya and Sindarin so that I could read passages in the languages aloud. So that's very interesting. Do you mean that when you were doing the pronunciation of Quenya and Sindarin, that like you did each sound and then you can play them together? Like, do you use like some recording devices or something like that? Because I'm not really sure like what you were talking about with your practice there. But
Braille is the
really awesome.
Braille is the blind tactile alphabet. So she probably transcribed it.
I know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah. So, maybe what she's talking about. Oh, I see. Okay. This is very interesting that you're talking about this, because we noticed something with the free Elvish fonts, which are, those are called like the letters that those are called Tengwar. Okay. Dan Smith made fonts. And what he did was he did it in a keyboard pattern, but rather than matching the sound to the letter on a regular keyboard that we all over the world using it for sound, he he did it in an alignment with what the character looked like versus what it sounded like. Okay. Now that tells you the kind of thinker that Dan Smith is. Like, he was a visual thinker. If you think in a sound way, you would align it on your keyboard as a sound way, so that B would be the B on your keyboard, not the R or whatever, right? So it would be like really disconcerting to type in Dan Smith's font keyboard layout. It really should have been refashioned into a sound layout. Okay, just saying. I think even for people who are not like sound wise challenged, okay, I still think that it would be better for everybody, because we all make the sounds. Okay, we say B, B, and think B, B, and we want to see it on the B place in the keyboard layout. So Dan Smith, if you're out there listening somewhere, redo your keyboard layouts, okay, to do it with sound, and we would be able to access your amazing fonts much easier and be able to type in those fonts much
Richard
easier.
Richard Parker, my Tiger Spirit he comes up with funny stuff, at least funny to me. He said, you know, what I would do is I would actually hook up each key and each glyph to a random number generator, and every time you hit a key, it would remap the entire keyboard randomly. Yeah, that would be cool.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's really cool, Marianne. I'm not even visually challenged, and yet I can really relate to that, being that I'm more auditory and musical as well. Tengwar is best, no protest. That is from Arundur, and we like the Kirth for what it's good for too. And Marianne says, thank you, Dave, for an excellent paper, well thought, very well thought out and presented.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Jim says, I'd hope that you'd mention her. And so, meaning Caradwyn. So, yeah, we could talk about Caradwyn. I don't see Caradwyn having a equivalent in the Valar. Maybe with Varda Elentari, the Queen of the Stars, but I mean that would be stretching it, because that would be like saying that Varda has a cauldron, and we don't really know like how she makes her stars. So I'm not sure how. And he does say Welsh, yeah, Caradwyn, Welsh, of course. Yeah. So Caradwyn. Yeah, there's Arianrod, the spider one, that makes like, she's also like that there's stars and other things that would go with that, but totally different energy than Varda Elentari, I think. But Caradwyn is a very important, I would call her like a very primary, she would be kind of like Hecate in the Greek pantheon, like, but Caradwyn in the Welsh, like she's very instrumental because of that cauldron and her dominion over that, and that it forms the world. So, at least in my studies of her, it's been a little while, so if I'm off, you know, I might be thinking of somebody else. So just making sure. Okay. Let's see here. We have Arundur saying, Senindo YouTube channel is teaching people Eldaren Quenya from Norway, and his name is Helg Voksanger. Oh, we know about Helg Voksanger. He's the one that is running, what's the name of his website? Arda Lambian. Arda Lambian. Yeah, Arda Lambian. So, yeah, we know about that.
Yeah, Milder told me about his new YouTube channel too. So I'm aware of it. I just don't, you know, I don't frequent it because it's not my talent. So, you know.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, we just had 2:33:33 like pop up in the live. So wow, we're going for a long time here, guys. So Jim says, I was correcting myself there. What I was hoping is that you would slightly flex your knowledge of your former pagan studies in your time, that Caradwyn is considered the goddess of the bards. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. And yes, there is a tremendous story with her, with a certain bard. But you know, that's a topic for a different day. But yes, you are correct about that. Okay, and Parf Eleden is a good dictionary. Yes, we're aware of that. Astrophel says, like with a point up like this. I use par etalant, a lot to make prayers. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. So again, like, it doesn't have to be the world elvish language according to Edward, you know, Kloxko necessarily, in order to have the resonation
precisely
that you need, because the language is actually music more than it's actually, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
You know, literal, like that we're going to be speaking every day in language. Okay. So that's how I look at the language, is it's more like esoteric and musical to me. And that is the quality that I like. I can appreciate the linguistic structure at a different level. It means different things, and it's absolutely valid and absolutely awesome to understand the different levels of culture through language. But for me, Elvish is like, when I hear it, it's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's like, I guess it's like having, you know, some people, like, they're attracted to the sound of French or the sound of other languages, like, and they just go, oh, I'm at that place, you know, because it vibrates. It's a vibration thing. Okay. And Jim says, even though I was late, thank you for your paper, Dave. As I said before, I truly enjoy your writing.
Oh,
so that's from Jim. Marianne says, I read the passages in Elvish languages from Tolkien aloud. A dear friend traced the Tingwar for me, but I've never written them. Yeah, I think it's hard for people, even if they are visually, you know, oriented. They're not easy characters to just, you know, whip out, you know, like they take some time to, you know, do calligraphy, okay, type of thing. And Jim says, no, Lisa, you're sharp, no worries. Okay, thank you.
Richard Parker wants to know.
Sometimes think I have memory lapses, you know. It's like,
Richard Parker wants to know how you say Richard Parker into his house in Quenya.
Yeah. My God. Richard Parker and his sense of humor. And if some of you don't know what that's about, the video with Dave is down below. Okay. So Caradwyn is a major entity in revival druidry, just saying, and that's from Astrophel. Yes, I do know about that. The druidry that I was involved with was more of the Obod type of stuff, rather than the revival one, like when I was studying it for comparative study, because actually I was really already involved in the Elven path when I was digging into that. And what I was doing kind of comparative study. But yes, I do understand about that. That's pretty awesome. Okay, Marianne says, I took Helge Foxanger's Quenya course many years ago. My friends thought that I was crazy. Well, now they know that you are just fine. and maybe get new friends, right? Hang out with us. We're just saying. Okay. Astrophel, you have a beautiful picture. Meaning her, okay, her avatar. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. And Irundur, Adonian appreciative. Adonian appreciative. I'm not, maybe Adonian is or Adonion is the name of the particular avatar. And maybe you can invite Folksanger here. Why? Why would we invite Folksanger to our channel? Now, if we were a language studying group, which
a
we're
language-
not, we're not a language studying group. We appreciate the qualities of the language, but this is not the area for actually like deeply learning languages. We are trying to add a language area, but the actual core of our studies, Arundur, has to do with spirituality. And it's about core spiritual studies in the core track. And then language would be kind of an elective, okay? Even though we recognize the quality of it. So we don't have really a reason to want to interview him. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, I can answer. He doesn't know any more about shamanism and this sort of reception than I know about linguistics. So there'd be a disconnect.
Okay, he says he understands that now.
Yeah.
So okay. So I think we've gotten through the comments. Wow, that was a lot of comments all at one time. Whoa. Okay. So we can go to the appendix now. And so I'm going to switch back. So I'm not going to be able to see the comments right now. Oh, I'll unhighlight that. Okay. I will be switching back to the appendix. So Dave, are you ready to read the appendix? Okay, excellent.
Appendix 1. The difference between shamanism, mediumship, and channeling. And the reason I put this in here is because in the past, and in my other group, Islunte Valiant, we've gotten this type of question a lot. Well, was Tolkien channeling? Was he a medium? You know, questions like that. So I did research on, because I come out of a science background, so other than shamanism, I didn't have a clear idea before this research on what a channeler was or what exactly a medium did. But now I researched it so I can present this information. So this is what I discovered while writing this paper. And it actually most of this information comes from my Quora thread, which I link at the very end. So this is where I'm getting the information from. And these are people on the thread that have actually experience in these. They're not just people saying, well, I hear tell that channeling is this and such. These are people that actually do it. So shamanism and mediumship both involve communication with the spirit world, but differ significantly in their practices and intentions. A medium connects with the spirits by raising their vibration to communicate with deceased loved ones, providing comfort and evidence of the afterlife. This process is validated by the person receiving the reading, ensuring the medium connects with the correct spirit. In contrast, shamanism encompasses healing, manifestation, and spiritual battles. Shamans collaborate with individuals to help them heal and achieve their desires, interacting with various spirits and realms rather than focusing solely on spirits of the deceased. They operate on 4 levels of reality: physical, psychic, dream, and holistic, drawing energy from spirit, the earth, or the higher self to facilitate healing and transformation. And I did have a question about this. These 4 levels of reality, these are not my levels. This comes from the Quora thread. So that's where other shamans were saying that operate on 4 levels.
Okay.
To me, everything is all integrated, so I don't perceive it as 4 levels, but other people apparently do. So this is the information. Shamanism this is mine though. Shamanism is deeply connected to nature, with shamans acting as consciousness keepers attuned to natural signs and omens. They may use entheogens, medicine plants, to deepen their understanding and connections with the unseen world, a practice not typically associated with mediumship. While both shamans and mediums communicate with the spirit world, their approaches and purposes differ. Shamans focus on holistic healing and manifesting positive changes to their connection with nature and various levels of reality, whereas mediums primarily provide comfort by connecting with spirits of the deceased. Despite these differences, both paths offer valuable insights and assistance. It appears that a channeler is essentially similar to a shaman, but with less direct connection to nature spirits, representing a new age variant of shamanism. More information on the similarities and differences can be found in this Quora thread. That's a link to it. And then the first time we did the video, Calantirniel said that she said, and this I'm just quoting you, Lisa, said her experience of channeler It's closer to a medium than to a shaman, as defined in this paper. So that's what you said
Yeah,
last
and
time.
that is from my profession as a professional reader, because I am a professional astrologer, tarot reader, dowser, and claircognizant. And sometimes I have other clairs, but they're not reliable enough for me to always say that that is on. But claircognizance is always on, so I will say that. But over the time that this has happened, for the last like 20 plus years, every time that I am in contact with someone who talks about that they are a medium or a channeler, they're almost always the same thing. Sometimes a channeler will quote channel like the greater spirit or the cosmic soup or the source material or the all that is, or like other spirits or other things, where a medium usually is very specific to people who have passed away, or, you know, those kinds of things. And that is a completely different, you know, thing. When I go to the, if you will, the spiritual soup of the all that is, I want to go to source or as high as I can go when I'm doing work. Where other people, because their job is a little bit different, like for instance, when Dave was talking about like that they needed a specific piece of information in order to like maybe feel comfortable or what have you with, oh wow, there is an afterlife, oh wow, I will see them again, you know, even in their absence from the planet, that it can be very comforting that they didn't disappear forever, that only their body's gone, right? So, and then a shaman usually is healing. The energies of the shaman, it can be asked for by people, but usually there is a healing element going on with shamanism, okay, that is beyond, like, that it's literally about, like, say for instance, like the guy that does psychic surgery, you know, puts his hand over the stomach of a person, but the energy field is manipulated to be where that person literally has like a stomach that is now well, and by all medical tests they are fine, and they don't know like how it happened. And it could be like a shaman kind of person that would do that type of healing. Energy healing, I think, is more of a shamanic type of thing than a channel or a medium, which is just bringing information that can be healing, but like more in a heart way rather than in a physical way, or, you know, like something like that. So I just thought that I would add that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So Dakyndre, did you have anything to add to that? Because you kind of like go in those fields yourself.
Not really at the moment. I do go in those, but sometimes it's not always in connection with like the Tolkien type thing.
Sure.
I wouldn't really bring it into kind of the current setting, just because it's, for me, it's outside of this aspect.
Okay. That I totally understand that. But when you are doing that, even if it's outside of Tolkien for now, and it may blend together later, do you find that you have a tendency toward either what shamanism is, or what channeling is, or what mediumship is? And if so, which one or ones are your preference, and why?
I'm not sure exactly what mode it would be. I definitely have, if I was to bring it in, I definitely have, like, in essence, connections that I've worked with, like specific beings that through meditations or through that nature, I would say almost a fostering of a friendship. And
Yeah.
as a result, that's where I get a lot of the information that I tend to work with, is things that are brought to me in a sense.
I see.
Like almost like, to put it into a analogy, kind of would be like someone texting you, rather than me trying to
rather
find the
than you
information.
texting them.
Right. It would be like someone coming up and going, hey, you need to know about this through like a text message. I found something that you would find interesting. And
Yeah.
so in that sense, I then will maybe delve a little deeper into that topic, usually through asking my other friends. As I've explained,
I see.
Kind of before, like astrologically, in our conversations during one of our recent interviews, a very good example is I'll be going about my day, sitting at work, doing a report for one of my bosses, and all of a sudden I get, something that's like, like an occurrence that I'm thinking of like, oh, hey, I've been noticing more spirits around or something, than usual, like physically. And then I
Yeah.
get something in my head where I'm like, where I just hear astrological, like not spirits, astrological. And so then I'll reach out to someone like you. So
Yeah.
my thing's not really shamanic, more as it would be almost like a friend type concept or messages rather than that sort of thing. So
well, and I think that it makes a big difference because you as a person are more kind of in the magical alignment, meaning, and by magic, what I mean is like, the text message that we send to the other side with a bunch of juice, right? Like maybe with a video or something, right? Like, here's what we're looking for, spirit. And the receiving back is what you're talking about, probably, because when you're doing magic. And by the way, for some people, they might call the part that we would call magic, they might call prayer. Okay, where you submit your wishes to the other side and, like say, hey, these are what I wish for. And the difference is that you can do all of the wishing and never hear back from the other side about what it is or what is happening, or maybe that's not good for you or whatever. And what Dakyndre and I are talking about is like when we get the messages back.
Right. For my personal self, it's not, I don't do like the whole, the shamanic thing, because it's not an area that I've ever been really good with. More as kind of like you said, it's sending out the question and then waiting for one of my friends on the other side, in a sense, to text back a thing, or them sending a text to something that I didn't even know I had sent a question out about. So it's a much different process for myself.
Just at the end here, my experience is actually, it's very similar. If you ever seen pictures of the Secret Service guys with a basically a telephone earpiece in their ear, and they can both talk and receive. It's like that with my salvia friends, except except the transmission is not verbally. It's in my internal visual thought going back and forth. But it is a bidirectional full duplex communication like that. So yeah.
Interesting. And it's always on after you did one time of salvia. Right. Is that correct?
Right.
Like it's like they built a Bluetooth into Dave, and they have actual access now. And you have access too when you need it.
Right. In fact, if I'm looking for something, and when I was researching to write this document, he would say, "No, that's the wrong search term. Type in this one." So I did, and I found something very interesting.
Wow. So very cool.
See, mine's not really a two-way thing. Mine's more like almost like a Google search, in a sense of like like what could be the cause of this, and then something gets sent back, and then if I was to be like, can you clarify, they're gonna be like, no, we told you what you need to know, go do the work yourself. We're not having a conversation.
I'm a dowser too, and I call this my telephone, and I call it also my information that Google can't find. This is how I do it. You know what I mean? So I understand the two-way, and I think that I'm more like how Dakyndre does it. Like I'm a little bit more structured in the way that, like, that I work. Where Dave has a structure too, but it's just different because it was actually taught to him by the Salvia people that, like, this is how they communicate. So he adapts to it, you know. And I have heard this somewhere, and it's been a long time, and I don't know where I heard it. But hey, guys, like, if you guys are actually aligned in whichever way, and you have an opinion about it, put it in the comments. But this is what I've heard. I have heard that a witch or a magician or an occult practitioner, any of the above, has a lot of filters on their situation so that they are able to do the work, but then able to shut it off. When they're not doing the work, they can go into the regular world and they can, like, turn off the light, close the door, and go back to life. Okay. Maybe they have like a string of that, like if they need to be reached again, but that witch or magician or practitioner, okay, can like be reached, and then, but then they have to open the door back up in order to get like the information. So it's kind of like an open and closing door type of situation. With a shaman, or at least in the definition of like what I understand as shaman, and most of this is like in ancient times, they were always on. Their door was always open to the spirit world. And so we're actually talked about as being, if you will, quote, crazy, unquote. Like they were always in the other world. They were never in this world. They were always accessible to the other world. Now, I realize that we don't have jobs like that in our current day. Okay. But I have a feeling that if Dave were at a different time in our, you know, existence as humanity, he might have such a job. Like he might be literally in the other world at all times.
I think part of that too might be like what you described as filters. Part of it might be to some extent dependent on the underlying neurobiology of the mind doing the reception. Like what I've noticed is a lot of people online that claim to be shamans or claim to receive in that manner. Unfortunately, they tend to be rather schizophrenic form. That is schizophrenic-like without being formally diagnosed. I'm on the autism spectrum, so I'm almost the opposite. And it doesn't mean that there are like thicker filters or whatever. It just means the underlying mind is constructed very differently. So I have hardware that they don't have. So that's why I can spot bullshit easily, and I'm not deceived by some other spirit saying, well, you should dunk your head in the toilet and breathe in. Yeah, that'll do it. You know.
And actually, we really do need to do a warning system for people who are receiving detrimental messages from, like harmful messages from their guidance, that they actually need some kind of discernment system or a clearing or something like that, because we do not promote harmful any of that. Okay, like, so if you are experiencing something like that, you might want to well, first off, if you have a therapist or something that you're working with, you might want to find out from them like how to construct like boundaries in order for you to like maintain your mental and or psychological health. Okay, so that you can deal with that, because no entity should be harmful to you or telling you harmful things or fear-based things, or and any emotion that is less than love, that is just not acceptable. Now it's different, like if you're getting warned about a situation, okay, like an actual warning, not fear porn, okay, like that's not what we're talking about here, because there are some energies that are very tricky and they like playing with humans. And so some new people opening up, or people that have the if you will, the neurological system of what in our day would be called schizophrenia, okay? Because schizophrenia back in the ancient times was a way that that the shamans would be determined in their tribe. Like as soon as they could identify that particular trait, sometimes they would say, oh, you're the next shaman for us. And it was not a position of like, oh yes, I'm going to be so revered and everything. It was hard work because, again, a shaman in those times meant that they lived in the other world all the time. It's very tiring. It's very exhausting.
I would, oh yeah.
Go ahead. I'm done.
I was gonna say it, in addition to that, it is in a sense, and we'll go into this more later because I know we have plans to do like sort of biographical introduction videos,
right,
like,
right,
about ourselves, which we'll do in-depth ones. But
yeah,
we've discussed this outside in our own things. But it is, I did want to reiterate what you said. It is exhausting for someone like myself. While I'm not shamanic in the same nature as most are, the idea of filters and veils and doors, I've never had that. So I do know that a lot of the neo-pagans, they can turn their things on and off. Like, oh, hey, I'm going to a, full moon ritual. I'm going to open my doors, be magical here, and then I'm going to go home and go to work. And while I'm at work, I'm not going to see the spirits that are wandering around. I'm going to be able to be a cashier or whatever the job is, and I can focus 8 hours of my life on that. I don't have those filters, so I can be sitting in a meeting talking about this quarter's production things and how we can ramp up, deliveries to our customers in the coming quarter based off of our notes. And all of a sudden, I have to try to divert my thought process because I'm sitting here talking about work, and something completely magical comes in and goes, oh, hey, this later on, you need to start writing a paper on this. So it is.
So you have to jot it down and say thanks. And then
I have to just be like, oh, hey, bosses, I'm jotting something down to remind myself for, a place we can focus on. I have to turn it work related because there is no.
Yes, they'll never understand, of course.
And I always joke that if you start telling your bosses that you practice a metaphysical spirituality, they probably aren't going to leave you in charge of a warehouse with $500,000 product, 5 crews, and 2 trucks for very long.
Exactly.
So
exactly. You have to be so careful about, and I realize that, again, spirituality is a lot more open, but there's still a lot of things in place that don't allow that. I was going to mention also with the doors, we think of a regular door that just opens and closes and it's easy to deal with. And even with a lock, you just get a key and you just open it. And the way that I look at that for myself is that it's more like a gate of a castle that has to be lowered over a moat. Okay. In other words, it's easier to leave it down or up or like part way. And that's a better way for me to say that I'll navigate that, because I find it very difficult to keep opening and closing the door all the time. It's really, really hard. I can't just shut down and then go do legal secretary work and then come back and then be as effective. So I made it to be where I can at least kind of just stay in the world of being able to describe things. And even though I have to navigate in the regular world, and I do fine, okay, it's not like I'm constantly seeing, ghosts or anything like that. That's not what happens. But I do have how Dakyndre and Dave both have kind of an open line for if you really need some kind of input towards something, you get a ping. But I'm also in a practice regularly. And what I mean by regularly is every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes many times a day, where I'm always in communication. So they do have a lot of opportunities to come to me. So they're not usually bugging me like all night long or whatever. It's like I have office hours, right?
Right. See, and
So,
I don't.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
No,
I don't know.
I'm done. I'm done.
Oh,
So go ahead.
Say, I don't know about Dave. I'm not gonna speak for him. But for me, a better equation to your thing is there is no castle door. There is no archway. There is just basically a 40-foot section of wall missing, and it's just an open tunnel, whether I want it to be or not.
Yeah. There's any gating mechanism for me either.
Gating mechanism. It's just, hey, there is a direct channel into you, and it is open 24/7. There are no guards. There is just, I can be sitting at a work meeting, and if a spirit happens to be in the building or happens to be in the vicinity, I will see it just as much as I see everyone on a video chat. So it's not like I can be like, oh no, not now. This isn't my office hours. Things will show up, and it's like, oh, okay.
With me,
and that's not there.
With me, it actually happens in two modes, because I'm a Tiger Therianthrope, so I have my indwelling tiger spirit, who I named Richard Parker after the Life of Pi movie. He was always there, but he didn't really have a name before that. But he does funny stuff. Like if he were in the type of meeting, he'd be standing on his head and spinning around the table. Look, I'm breakdancing now, and stuff like that. That's completely different from my Salvia friend, who's more. Well, he can make jokes too, but he's more laconic and to the point. I guess the point. He doesn't joke around like Richard Parker does.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a couple of things. Arendur said good night, which we said good night back. Jim said the anecdote that you told, that you also told in the interview, sounds rather familiar to me. He's just
I don't
teasing.
know what he's talking about.
So I said, yep, that's probably the case. And then Starflower says, I found that out the hard way. I let my boss know that I practice Kriya yoga. So, I mean, something as innocent as yoga. And she started bombarding me with evangelical Christian paraphernalia. How horrible.
Wow.
That is like not cool. Like yoga? Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, you could be Christian and practice yoga and it's not harmful. Like you can still have your Christ energy and all of the stuff. Wow. That's really extreme. So, wow.
Richard Parker just said, you never see the eyes of the demon till him come calling.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess that because we're going on, we're actually past the 3-hour mark, so I think we should go.
Well, let me go through the things real quick here.
Which things?
Well, in the document.
Oh shoot! I thought we were done. I didn't. No. I need to pull it up again. I apologize. Let me.
We can just look at the. We can just look at the appendix 2. Those are the neurotheology references. That's the biotheology. And
I scanned those. Well, it's fine. I'll let you discuss them first. I did scan through the document as we were talking.
Right. That's the basically works that people may be interested in if they're drawn to the neurobiology of shamanism. This tells all about that. These are the various works that do. And then the last one, we can just go past these because these are people. The last one are the recommended works, and I have some listed here. Singing to the Plants is a really good one. The Guide to Mestizo Shamanism in the Upper Amazon, and I give a description of each work. Spirit of the Rainforest is interesting because that's a first-hand anthropological account from a shaman who was in that culture. It's a very violent culture, and it's been contacted since the 1960s, but the people are inherently they have their shamans don't focus on healing and light and love. They focus on killing their enemies. So
Okay.
it's
Are we
different.
still in Appendix 2 right now?
No, I went past that because we're on recommended
Okay.
works now.
Okay,
And
so we're in, okay, so the spirit of shamanism, etc. Okay, so we're
right.
down in the part where it says recommended works.
Right, and I'm talking about
Singing
Spirit
to the
of the
plants.
Rainforest.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's a
I
really
just
good one.
barely got this back online for everybody, so
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize. Yeah.
Spirit of the Rainforest is an alternate view to show that shamans are not all sweetness and light. In the original tribal societies, they have battles with each other. So it's shamanism is very similar to the Force. It depends upon whether the person has a good or ill intent. It's the same power underneath, but it can be used for good or evil. So that's why I put the Spirit of the Rainforest in.
Oh yeah, and actually the work that I bookmarked in the video description under here, I put the messages from the mutant messages from Down Under. I linked the Amazon link too.
Right, yes.
So that's another one with the story that we talked about where the non-shaman is like hanging around with tribes that were going very, very deep into the outback, like without days of civilization around, finds out that it's like, hey, if you break your leg out here, like what happens? And they said, oh, well, we'll show you. And they broke one of their other tribes members' legs. And literally, it would have taken days for a shaman or a medicine person to arrive. And they literally arrived the moment that happened and said, we knew that this was going to happen. So
exactly.
We talked about that in the last video. And so I wanted to just recap it with this and not forget to mention it in this video.
And the next one, Shaman and the Jaguar, is interesting because it's about the therianthropic, that is to say, animal person, the type of being that I am, where I can send out my spirit in the shape of a tiger. This Shaman and the Jaguar is very similar, and it details it because in South America, the apex, like in Asia, the apex feline predator is a tiger. In South America, it's a jaguar. So it's the same apex predator, but a different species.
Yeah, well, different culture, different geographic region,
Right. And then, of course, and it has resonances with here in North America with the Thunderbird, because they have in Colombian, in these tribal cultures that it comes from in the book. Colombian peoples emphasizing the cultural and religious significance of thunder and jaguars. Thunder is seen as a supernatural force, signifies the calling for prospective shamans, and is often associated with their transformation into jaguars. Therianthropy. That is to say, calling for prospective shamans. The tribal people, if thunder occurs with a certain sound and the lightning hits in a certain way, like branch lightning, and the way it looks and the way it sounds, that will indicate to the other tribal members that this particular person, with the aspect of the thunder and lightning, probably has a calling for shamanism. So then the shaman of the medicine person, of their tribe, will then say, will then start training them, basically. So that's yeah, that's a very interesting one.
They get messages from not only their guides or what have you, but even from outside, like thunderstruck in this weird way, like
exactly,
or, or a bird flew in this particular way that's weird, like out of character, and they're always watching those kinds of things,
right?
So and sometimes it's actually, like, for instance, with animals, like it might even be a shaman that's shape-shifting into that animal and acting out like in that, like, because they're able to shift their energy into an animal and like kind of use their eyes or whatever, right?
Exactly, and and the book is also interesting because it basically tells colonial era, where the Spanish were took over the whole area.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Their priests wrote a lot of stuff down that the Indians were telling them, even though they didn't believe it. They were recording the information,
Yeah, thank God for that. Like, otherwise we wouldn't know.
Their explanation of it was, these people are consorting with the devil, but
Of course.
but they actually,
they did that in European societies before they did it in the North American societies and the South American societies. So yeah,
and this one is interesting because it has all those first-hand accounts of the different medicine plants that they use. So it talks about ayahuasca, cool. But it also talks about a whole bunch of other ones. So if anybody wonders what this stuff is in South America and what does it do, without having to spend $6,000 and go on an ayahuasca retreat yourself, you can get a lot of information just from reading this book.
This book, okay. Yeah. 1975, still authoritative apparently.
And and that's why it says narcotic drugs, even though the entheogens in South America are not narcotics. That's more like opium, but they didn't know what else to call it back in the day,
Right. Yeah.
And then, of course, then there's a standard Tolkien biography by Humphrey Carpenter, and then these are the last two are the two basically the source references for the Tolkien and his environmentalism and his environmental vision. So that's for that information.
The Ents, Elves, and Eriador, the environmental vision of J.R.R. Tolkien, a classic. That one is so good. And then All Worthy Things, the Personhood of Nature in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, Myth Lore 40. Which is
that one
to have
that one has a link. If you click that link, you'll actually be able to download the PDF because they've made it publicly available.
See. Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it looks
and
like,
that's it. And then below that are just the references. So we're through with the document.
Okay.
So
excellent. Okay, thank you so much. And I did scroll through this, but I'll scroll through it again.
Right.
We've reviewed many of these, but for all of you. Go ahead and just download the document, become a free member of our Patreon, and grab the document. That's the best way to do this. And so there, we're still at the end. Okay, yeah, we're at the end. Yeah. Great. Lots and lots of references. So, okay. So, okay, Starflower says, no, it was not good. I had learned to be more discerning with what I share. Yeah, we've all had that Elven lesson of what we share and what we don't share. So one thing I like about the elves is that they display the best boundaries ever, right? In the stories. And
true, yeah.
Jim says Richard Parker has a great sense of humor. We agree. We laugh so much. We have so much fun when he's around. And Nimue says this was fantastic. Thank you. So at that point, I think we're going to wrap up. If we have any other last minute comments, I'll wait around. But I think that it's probably a good ending area. So we're at 3 and we're over 3.25 hours now. So we've got to, and Astrofel says just downloaded the doc. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Love your works, Dave, she says.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Which is really, really cool.
And it's nice.
Blessings, everyone. Thank you so much, Marianne, for having your energy here today. It's been just a pleasure. I'm glad. So cool.
I'm really glad that people do like my work and are thanking me because I'm sort of like the behind the scenes person. Lisa's usually like the face of the organization, and Dakyndre shows up sometimes. I'm more in the background, and so it's nice to be appreciated. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it kind of seems like you're in the background, but you're really not. Just because people associate my face with it, it doesn't mean that you're not important.
Right. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, blessings, everyone. And thank you so much for the presentation. That's from Starflower. And our newest patron, we're so excited.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you joined.
It's so cool. Yeah. So some people actually got off on Labor Day, and that's awesome. And then, so yeah, we'll just let you guys get going. And Jim says, thank you for the stream and have a good one. You too,
Yeah.
Jim. We can't wait to hang out again. It'll be fun. Okay. So I think we're going to go ahead and end off, and we're going to do the we're going to end the stream.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Have a
Rachel
good one.
Parker says
Light
goodbye.
Many blessings to all of you.